Calling a meeting to order, special meeting agenda, Wednesday, April 29th, 12 p.m., City Council Chambers. All stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas Pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one flag, under God, one indivisible.
Moment of silence, please. We pray for the people impacted by tornadoes, especially our friends in Mineral Wells, Texas. We pray for their losses. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Secretary, roll call, please.
Yes, Mayor. Honorable Mayor, Dr. Victor D. Trevino,
Present.
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem and Council Member District 1, Gilbert Gonzalez, Honorable Council Member District 2, Ricardo Richie Rangel Jr., Honorable Council Member District 3, Melissa Cigarroa,
Here.
Honorable Council Member District 4, Ricardo Rick Garza, Honorable Council Member District 5, Ruben Gutierrez Jr.,
Present.
Honorable Council Member District 6, Dr. Tyler King. Honorable Council Member District 7, Vanessa Perez. Honorable Council Member District 8, Alisa Cigarroa.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you.
Mayor, motion to excuse the members of the council missing.
Motion. Second, all in favor? Opposed, motion passes.
Mayor, may I'd just like to note for the record that Dr. Tyler King is on Army Reserve training in Georgia, and that's why he couldn't be here today.
All right, noted. All right, we have only one citizen's comment. Well, reserve the comment for the agenda item. Start with communications. Presentation by mayor providing general comments on city matters, upcoming initiatives, and other relevant updates for city council and the public. The reason for calling this special meeting is to discuss one of our most pressing issues facing our community, our water security. We're confronting very real challenges that threaten our water availability, both now and in the future. And I was mentioned at the joint press conference with Congressman Cuellar and Representative Raymond last week. We have about 10 hours of water storage for the entire city. In a worst-case scenario, what would happen if we would experience an interruption in our water intake from the river by drought, natural event, or contamination. Also, recent developments that will be presented today related to groundwater modeling, regional planning decisions, and ongoing supply constraints require our full attention and coordinated response. And it is critical that we act proactively to protect our water resources, strengthening our long-term planning, and ensure that Laredo has water it needs to continue growing and thriving. And the reality is that Laredo has always acted in good faith and played by the rules, and unfortunately others have not. In addition, this meeting will provide an important update and announcement on ongoing discussions and negotiation with the Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Border Patrol. These conversations that have been over the course of several months directly impact our community, and it is important that we keep our seat at the table through dialogue and negotiation. We also need to keep the public informed as we continue advocating for solutions that balance national security with the needs and safety for residents. That being said, we'll move forward with general discussions. We'll start out with discussion number 2. Discussion with possible action to receive a briefing on April 22nd, 2026, GMA-13 action related to groundwater availability, modeling, and desired future conditions and the impacts to the city water supply planning, funding opportunities, and any matter related thereto.
Mr. Mayor, Trevino and City Council, if you will, at least allow us, Mr. David Earl will give our partner with Legacy Water Supply Corporation will give his information, and then Dr. Alzabet will come up to complete the package within that.
Okay, and I believe this would be conducted by them, so let's hear from them first. My initial motion would be to instruct management to look into our legal recourse and option-based, what is presented today, to include the county as well.
Yes, sir, perfect.
That would be my motion.
I'll second for discussion and presentation.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
What are we, I'm sorry, point of order. Are we just, Councilmember Gutierrez, we're just doing the presentation?
Just wanted to hear the presentation before we decide on what.
Let's listen to the presentation. Go ahead.
Mayor, members of the council, staff, and those in the audience, my name is David Earl. I'm General Counsel for the Legacy Water Supply Corporation. I'm very grateful you called this meeting. I'm very grateful to be here today because facing Laredo and Webb County is an extremely urgent and time-sensitive matter. And I'm going to present to you what happened on April 22nd that could shape or deny the city of Laredo and Webb County essential funding for its water future. GMA 13, the Groundwater Management Authority that governs Webb County and multiple other counties, met on April 22nd and took an action that has dire consequences. The goal of this briefing is to explain the issue to you, show why it affects Laredo ratepayers directly, identify the action council should take to protect its ratepayers' interests, preserve the city's legal and administrative rights, Mayor, as you already made in your motion, keep state grants and low-cost financing available to lower ratepayers' cost. Without that state funding, ratepayers are guaranteed very high water rates. With it, the water rates are manageable and fair. And coordinate with Webb County, the Legacy Municipal Management District, your utility partner to the north, the Legacy Water Supply Corporation, and Agua, the entity that this group, the City Council, the County Commissioners Court, the Legacy Water Supply Corporation, and LMD unanimously formed for the purpose of protecting Laredo's groundwater and your rights to it. And also work with Region M, the planning region for the state, and the Texas Water Development Board to make sure your rights are preserved. This will preserve options. It does not approve any kind of final water rates or final bond financing today. That's not on the table today. What's on the table today is protecting the ratepayers, protecting Laredo's flexibility and ability to access state funding.
Mayor, I just-
What for the presentation, then you can ask any questions.
Oh, could you ask what the LMMD means?
Yes,
And
Yeah,
not-
we did.
I'm sorry, the LMD is the Legacy Municipal Management District. It's a district, a special district created by the Texas Legislature under Chapter 4008 of the Special Districts and Local Laws Code. It serves 13,000 acres immediately north of the city. It will serve the water, sewer, all the utility and infrastructure needs for that entire 13,000 acres. It's like a city, but it's not controlled by a city council. It's controlled by a special board.
And Agua?
And Agua is the area underground water authority. It's basically all of the utilities that would look to or use groundwater in this region of Webb County coming together to be able to protect that groundwater as a resource and seek funding for a regional water solution, which would be the Webb County Regional Water Plan or program.
All right, thank you.
That's what Agua is. It's an acronym. But thank you for those questions. I take these things for granted 'cause I've been living it for 4 years, but it's important that everybody knows what we're talking about. So thank
Really
you.
appreciate it, thank you.
Sure. So the GMA 13, the Groundwater Management Authority for GMA 13, governs about an 8-county area. It includes Webb County, Maverick County, both which have no groundwater conservation district, and then multiple other counties. The other counties are all within groundwater management districts. And that entity, GMA 13, sets the planning number. It determines how much Carrizo Wilcox groundwater is recognized to be withdrawn for planning purposes under the state water plan. It affects state funding. If the number they put on what can be withdrawn within your county is too low, grant money and low-cost state financing become much harder to access or impossible to access. And with regard to ratepayer cost, no funding can make supplemental water far more expensive for Laredo. It could be 5, 6, 7 times more expensive without state grant funding that every other community gets. but you would be denied because you don't have access to that funding through the state water plan. The bottom line is the planning number can decide whether Laredo Supplemental Water Project is affordable for ratepayers. That's how critical this is. There's a huge fairness problem in this planning process. Laredo and Webb County, they're affected by the decision. They have no vote. They have no groundwater conservation district. They have no seat at the table. There's no Webb County district or anyone sitting at that table representing your interest in Laredo or Webb County at all. And ratepayers face the cost impact of that lack of representation. The outside groundwater conservation districts that control the other counties, they control the vote, they control the decisions that affect Webb County and your ratepayers. They have no accountability to Webb County voters or to this council or the county commissioners court. They can take advantage of Laredo ratepayers by this unfairness in the system. And they can create a water market outside of Laredo, outside of Webb County, that forces you to go 150 miles away to buy the water from them that you should be able to withdraw from your own backyard with state assistance. Because they'll get the state assistance because they put themselves in the water model for it. So this is why council action today matters. Webb County is affected, but has no vote on the GMA 13 decision. It's a small outside population. Let's talk about this population. The district that is the most influential in this decision for Webb County is Winter Garden. Winter Garden Groundwater Conservation District. It has a few counties in it, total of 3. By comparison, Webb County has a population, last official number, 281,224 people in Webb County. City of Laredo of that is 261,260 people, over 250,000 people that you protect, that you provide services for. Winter Garden, all 3 counties only has 23,500 people roughly, a tenth of the population, less than a tenth of Laredo. So a district, Winter Garden, representing 24,000 people is influencing the water future of more than 280,000 Webb County residents and Laredo residents. That's what's happening. And you have no position or voice at the table. Let me put this in context for you. This is how unfair it is. It's not even close to fair. Per person, let's look at per person water allocation under this plan that they voted on April 22nd to move forward to the state water plan, locking you out. The per person Carrizo Wilcox planning water under the proposed numbers for Webb County only gives 7,392 gallons of aquifer water per year. That's only 20.25 gallons per day per inhabitant of Webb County. That's it. Winter Garden on the other side, because they get to vote, they're at the table, they get 943,345 gallons per person per year. That's 2,584 gallons per person per day that they give themselves. In this last round, they increased their allocation by 40% without any projects or rationale why they're getting it. But they kept you from getting a drop of additional water.
Mayor. We'll wait for the presentation. Let the commission-
This is the number that's shocking to me. I hope it's shocking to you and to the ratepayers. Winter Garden gives themselves 12,666% more water per person than they're allowing Laredo to get. 12,666% more. It's insane. It's about 128 times more water per person for Winter Garden than Webb County. Even though y'all pay the majority of the taxes in this region to fund the state water programs. You don't get to access them because of this. Why it happened in April. We thought we were in good shape here because although we asked for 50,000 acre feet of withdrawal rights under this new water plan, and we've been working on that for over 4 years, 5 years, Winter Garden actually met on April 8th and said, well, yeah, their own hydrologist said at GMA 13 that this was the right thing to do, by the way. The scientists said this is the right thing to do. But Winter Garden met and said, well, we'll give Laredo 20,000 acre feet. Webb County 20,000 acre feet of additional water for supplemental out of the aquifer that they control and are on top of. They did that on April 8th. And they also said, well, we'll correct the historical usage from a woefully inadequate 916 acre feet a year to a woefully low, but at least better number 6,380 acre feet a year. And to put that in context, the oil and gas industry in Webb County alone fracks about 1,000 wells a year. Each well takes about 750,000 barrels of water, 42 gallons apiece. In other words, it's not even close. They're saying your allocation updated should be 6,500 acre feet. The real number being used in Webb County is over 100,000 acre feet, probably 200,000 acre feet, just for oil and gas alone. They don't even recognize it. What's it do to the ratepayer? What's it do to your oil and gas industry? Think about that. It's huge. So they did that on April 8th. At least we got 20,000 acre feet and a little correction on the historical. Then out of nowhere, and I went to that April 8th meeting. They don't even know what they're doing, frankly. It's all politically driven. On April 16th, out of nowhere, they call a special meeting without any reason or rationale. They completely reverse their vote and say, no, we're changing our mind. Laredo Webb County gets nothing, no additional water. And that's what they sent to the GMA 13 is their vote. And GMA 13 lets them do what they want because they're the county most affected. They're the district most affected by Webb County production. So that's what they did on the 16th. So on April 22nd, GMA took action. They heard from their hydrologist. Their hydrologist had our numbers in his presentation initially. Winter Garden made them take it out. And when it was presented to the GMA 13, they took action according to what Winter Garden wanted and ignored Webb County Laredo's request. Valid, fair request that had been in the works for 5 years or more. Just completely ignored it. Completely ignored it. The sudden reversal is why the city must act now to protect the ratepayers. What we requested, a fair planning number for real regional public water project. Number one, we wanted to correct the old number because 916 acre feet is way low. Two, recognize the actual use. Recognize the more realistic use that's being actually used every year, which the law requires them to do, and they're not doing. Add the water project. We asked for 50,000 acre feet. That's what Laredo needs for its long-term goals. This plans the water out to 2080. It's not tomorrow. We're talking about a 2080 number. 50,000 more acre feet by 2080, which tracks what your needs are regionally. They said initially no 20,000, and they took that away. So we want to add at least the 20,000 acre feet for the next 5 years to ramp it up according to what your need's going to be. And then the most important thing, keep the funding available, because if you're not in the water plan, you don't get any state funding. The $1 billion that everybody voted to approve to help fund water, you don't get access to it because you're not in the water plan, because they keep you out of it. Again, this last April 22nd, they did it again to you. This request keeps Laredo from being locked out. It doesn't approve any rates or final things today. What you're doing today doesn't do that. It just keeps you in flexible mode. It keeps you having the ability to keep your rates down and have flexibility on how you address your water problems. The GMA 13 number, as I said, affects the state planning process. It controls how the plan appears, what amounts appear in the plan. And then it goes to the funding access. It controls whether you get any money. And that directly affects the water rates. Because you get free money on the one hand, keeping your water rates low to build the infrastructure, do the improvements. On the other hand, you got to pay it all yourselves. The ratepayers have to pay it all back themselves. That's going to be reflected in the rates. If the city does not act now to challenge this unfair GMA 13 action, supplemental groundwater will cost at least 2, if not 3 or 4 or 5 times more than it should. And that's more for Laredo ratepayers, who you represent. The practical effect is higher long-term water costs for Laredo family and businesses, forcing Laredo's economy under stress, keeping these people that you represent in a dire situation with regard to water. Now, I'll tell you the truth. I'm a lawyer, and no one wants to fight. No one wants to go to battle unnecessarily. But this is a real issue for you and your ratepayers. And legal action may be required to preserve your rights. The goal is to keep funding and planning options alive. You have a lot of options. I've written a complete legal memorandum on all the options available to both the city, the county, the LMD, the Water Supply Corporation, even the private landowners who have the option of getting state funding to help them with their water wells taken away from them. What are the options for people in Webb County? I've given that legal memorandum to administrators at the city, the county, the water control, the LMD, and the Water Supply Corporation, and they're all looking at it right now. I suggest you really look at that. And I suggest a coordinated effort to make sure Webb County collectively, the Agua collectively, rights are protected. Confirm the exact GMA 13 action, adoption date, and deadline triggers. Make sure we know that like the back of our hand, because these dates matter. If you miss them, you lose. Send records requests and preserve the administrative record on how arbitrarily and capriciously they acted. What communications did they get from Winter Garden? Pressuring them, saying, don't give Laredo any water. There's emails I know that were sent back and forth on this. We need to see those. That's your evidence. Prepare a statutory desired future condition, reasonableness challenge if required. Chapter 36 of the Water Code allows an impacted user, a group, landowner, city, to challenge the desired future conditions of only 6,000 acre feet being able to be used out of the aquifer in 2080, by 2080. You have the right to challenge that under Chapter 36. Evaluate whether or not you can bring a Chapter 2007 takings impact and private property rights claim. Even though you're a city, you're a utility, and you own land in Webb County. So does the county. They own all the school district land. That could be producing water for Laredo, for Webb County, for the Colonias. They have a right to protect those rights as a property owner, as do you as a city, as do every other property owner. Chapter 2007 says an action cannot be taken by a state agency like this unless they do a takings analysis. How does their action impact people's rights and the value of their water? And is there a less offensive way, a less costly way to do what they're trying to do, which of course there is. So that's another thing you can bring. And prepare for court action, including emergency relief at TRO, if needed, if deadlines or funding rights are threatened, to protect your rights to the court system. This is not about fighting. Again, it's not for the sake of fighting. It's about protecting ratepayers from losing rights and waiting too long and being steamrolled by a small group of people who want to control your water future outside the county. So what I'm going to request the city action to be today is to keep every legal, administrative, and funding route open and protect the ratepayers. Preserve your rights. Make sure we support timely legal administrative action as needed in this process, the public comment process, knowing what the deadlines are. Coordinate regionally. Work with Webb County, the LMD, the Water Supply Corporation, and Agua, which embodies all of them. And that could be the tip of your spear. So the city doesn't have to file suit. The county doesn't have to file suit. The landowner, Agua can take the action on your behalf. You made that entity for a reason. Use it. Protect your funding. Make sure you get your fair share of state funds to protect and give the people what they need in Laredo. On the Water Development Board side, the Region M side, the state and federal funding efforts, and seek reconsideration of the record of what GMA 13 did. The action today you'll take protects Laredo ratepayers and keeps the future choices open for you and for them. The decision point is now. I hope I'm clear on this because there can be no mistake. You have to protect the ratepayer. Protect the city's rights to use Webb County water from Webb County and protect Laredo's water future. Do not allow a small clique, a group of people outside the county to harm a very large, very hardworking Laredo population by blocking their access to local groundwater and state funding to access it. Preserve the legal rights, keep funding alive, and keep water rates as low as possible. That's my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, Mayor. Councilwoman, she had one first. Go ahead. Okay.
Thank
We
you.
yield it to you.
Mr. Earl, first and foremost, thank you for the presentation. The GMA 13, who sits on that board and who decides who sits on that board?
So the state law decides who sits on that board. In order to have the ability to sit on that board, your county has to have a groundwater conservation district. If you don't have one, you don't get to sit on the board. Because Webb County has never formed or requested or finalized the request, we did request it, but it wasn't finalized. To have a groundwater conservation district, it gets no position on the board. It's that simple. It's not fair. So they regulate. It's regulation without representation.
Even though we're one of the largest counties in the state of Texas.
100%. No voice at the board. No seat at the table. And the legislature is aware of this. I will tell you at this meeting, to their credit, to their vast credit, Representative Richard Raymond, Commissioner John Galo, Representative Don McLaughlin, who represents these counties, some of them in Winter Garden. Congressman Cuellar's people were there. Senator Zaffarini's people were there. They all were voicing opinions saying, this is not right. Do what's fair. Completely ignored. That's the audacity of the situation you're facing.
Thank you.
All right, for the record, Mr. Secretary, Councilman Ricardo Rangel and Councilman Garza present.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes,
Thank you. Mr. Earl, what would it take for Webb County to become its own groundwater conservation district?
It can be done two ways under the law. The first would be the most effective way is to seek that from the legislature. There was a bill introduced before that would have made Webb County, initially the whole county, into a groundwater conservation district, which give you a place at the table, a right to have a voice in your water future. Going to the state legislature, this gentleman right here who represents you could introduce a bill to create that water conservation district. It doesn't keep anyone from pumping water. It doesn't regulate the ability to access water. It regulates whether you get funding to do it. And then analyzes what the numbers look like in the future and how the impact would be on the aquifer. I'll just tell you this though, Webb County's blessed. You're at the deepest, lowest part of the aquifer. Everybody else would go drive before you do. And that's probably why it's a good idea to do water planning, because you want to be fair to your neighbors, to other counties. But they're not being fair to you. And you're not trying to suck that aquifer dry. You're just trying to get your fair share of it and be responsible. That's one way to do it. The second way is to go to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and ask for formation of a priority groundwater management district administratively. It's frankly an administrative process. It takes more time. If you get into a contested case, which some landowners may object to it, and therefore you end up before a tribunal, it could take a long time. The legislature is a much faster, more direct way to do it.
And Mayor, so you just said that if landowners, there's no prohibition on the amount of water that they can take.
100%, that's correct. Legacy Water Supply Corporation can produce every drop of water at once, and it can sell it to the city. It can provide it to you on a wholesale basis, no markup. The problem is, how do you pay for the infrastructure? That's going to be directly reflected in that rate. If you build a house, you know, you can build a house anytime you want. Law doesn't prohibit it. But if you don't get financing or assistance or down payment assistance, that house is going to cost you more than you can afford. But if you get that assistance or you get that grant, now it becomes affordable. That's the deal. That's what you're working off of. And that's what you're facing. Being refused the right that every other Texas resident and citizen has, every other city, to access that state funding pot to get money, grant money, pay the infrastructure, keep the water bills low. That's the difference.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Well, I have one. I
Go ahead.
just wrote something real quick in here. I'm sorry for being a little bit late. I was stuck with some people. But I wanted to find out, and I was looking forward to your presentation. And I don't think we've received any information as of yet as to what role, is the state going to take a major role in this?
The state legislature can't do anything to help you really until the next session, unless they call a special session. Right now, the only people at the state you get to work with, other than having a willing person to listen and work off session to help you, is the Texas Water Development Board. They control this whole process. They're at this meeting. They witnessed it. They didn't say a thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're the ones doing it. So what you have to do is go back to the GMA 13 and force them to listen and give them one more shot. And I don't think they're going to take it, frankly.
Yeah.
So you may need to join them or make this serious by putting something in place, a TRO, to make people pay attention to you outside of the legislative cycle, number one. Number two, once GMA approves these things, which they'll do very quickly, they'll be done by September, October, it goes to Region M. Region M, bigger player group.
Right.
And they make a vote, and once they vote, it goes to the Water Development Board, and the Water Development Board just basically puts it in the water plan. So that's your options until you get to the legislature. You don't have time to wait to the legislature. You will lose your funding opportunities. Let me explain something to you. $1 billion available to you right now under Senate House Bill 150. Free money, all grant money, $1 billion that you could access part of to pay for your supplemental water project. Can't do it unless you're in that water plan, unless that GMA 13 plan says this is a real water project, even though no, it is. Remember, y'all passed a resolution telling them, hey, this is a real water project. Put us in the plan. You did that 2 years ago. They completely ignored you. Do you remember that? They're not going to do it again. I mean, you've got to force them to change their behavior. They've been consistently denying you and just ignoring you. How do you do that? Well, if it was a civil matter, or family law matter, I could tell you how you do it. You file legal action. It pretty much is, because you've got people fighting over the same asset, water, and they're winning. They're winning.
Mayor,
All right, yeah, go ahead.
And is it possible now, Mr. Earl, to file a TRO now?
Yes.
Prior to the application, of course, to hit the GMA 13 again?
Yeah, let me explain that to you. There's an administrative process, and as a lawyer, I'll just be clear to you. When there's an administrative process, you're supposed to follow it before you have standing to file an action. But that's not what the TRO does. It may reference that issue. The TRO says, hey, the process as applied is unconstitutional. It's flawed. It's not allowing the voters of this community, this city council who represents them, the county who represents them, to have even a voice or a vote in the process. That is un-American, it's un-Texan, it's unconstitutional, and it's illegal. That's what the TRO addresses. It says, oh, stop the process. When you see how they talked to Commissioner Galen, dismissed him, wouldn't let him hardly talk, or others, you understand that process they're using is not constitutional. It's violating people's rights, it's violating the city's rights. That's what the TRO would do. It'd say, stop, what you did is not lawful. In addition, the law says, chapter 6, that they have to take into account reasonable planning, real water usage that's actually happening. They can't make stuff up, which they're doing. They know it's not true. They all talk and laugh about it. These numbers aren't real, ha ha ha. They know they're doing it. So the TRO is to stop them in the tracks and say, you did the process wrong, we're gonna do it. And when you file that action, they're gonna take you seriously if you choose to do it. Again, it's not, you have to pay for it. You know, it's not about lawyers making money, but it costs money to do it, as you know. I would suggest you consolidate your resources with the county, the LMD, the Water Supply Corporation, use Agua as the tip of the spear, and go to town.
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
So along with your motion, I'd like to amend it and for it to include, of course, the county legacy water supply. And of course, I'd like to hear from management prior to doing this, if management is on board with filing this TRO with our county, of course, and then legacy water supply as well.
Yeah, Mayor, and yes,
Yes.
city management agrees that this is a very important issue that we need to be right in the forefront with as well too. So partnering with Webb County and everybody would be very important.
We have to do this.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Just a quick question, I was just wondering, you said about the county, and just wondering, do you have any idea why the county has never made a conservation district?
I do. It's a very difficult issue because, like you represent constituents. You represent voters, landowners. The county does too. You represent the consolidated urban area. Yeah, go ahead. John Gale's here. He actually is involved in the process.
Thank you, Commissioner Galo.
Take your thought.
Good morning, John Galo for the Record County,
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
County Commissioner for Precinct 3. We actually did try to form a groundwater district in, when was it? When Legacy first started. I guess it was 2 sessions ago. But we did, have the same problem. What was it, 916 acre feet?
That's all that they gave you.
They were gonna give us 916 acre feet for the whole county. And I think David got it wrong because they can restrict pumping. The actual district can tell you how many acres, how many wells you can pump, the spacing on the pump, and, how much you can produce. And what they would do is, they say, okay, you got 960 acre feet, now we're gonna take all the wells that are existing, grandfather those in, and say, oh, well, now you have no more water because you used all your allotment with these wells, so you can't drill any new wells. So immediately when we discovered that, we would do our application for the groundwater district, because without a groundwater district, we can pump as much as we want. We gotta pay for everything, but we gotta pump as much as we want. So it's a double-edged sword.
Sure.
And so that's why we withdrew it. That's why we attended this meeting. It was abominable what they do there. It's just amazing. And what they're doing, Winter Garden, is trying to sell water.
Sure.
So, as David said, they allocated themselves 40% more than their historical pumping. Nobody else got anything because they're trying to work a deal with either us or SAWS. SAWS is at the table. They have no ground district either. But they're so big, their ratepayers, the cost is spread out. And they also buy from all these other groundwater districts. So they have an in with them, and they're all kind of, you know, good old boy type deal. So again, that's why Winter Garden gave themselves 40% more, not because they're gonna irrigate more, because they wanna sell, they wanna go into the water business selling water. And so, like I say, I truly believe we need a TRO. I guess the lawyers will have to show us where to do it. If we do it, do we wait until the, public testimony is over? Or do we go ahead and file it, and maybe refile it if the court kicks us out? But I think we'll find some very interesting emails amongst those people going back and forth. I just wanted to give you a little heads up. We had, their hydrologist was, they call him Dr. Bill or whatever. And he testified about how the lady sent him an email, and he took the 20,000 acre feet out for Webb County, and he did the modeling, and I started questioning because I didn't know exactly how this process went either. So again, I asked him about, is it all water? He says, all water. And I said, well, that's very interesting because I think David alluded to it earlier. Oil and gas industry uses now about 1 million barrels per well. Let's just take a conservative average of 750,000 barrels, and that's times 42. So I have a little back of the napkin stuff that we're doing here. So in 2024, Webb County drilled 310 wells. That's 750,000 barrels per well. That's 232,500,000 barrels of water. And you divide by acre feet is 325,858 gallons of water in 1 acre foot. So it's basically how much 1 acre is, 1 foot deep. That's how many gallons you got. What is it, 7.8 gallons per square foot, I believe. So anyway, comes out to 30 million barrels. 30,000 acre feet. That's just the oil field using. And I pointed that out to Bill, and he goes, well, it's not online and I can't use it. And I said, well, so if you're modeling from today to 2080, and you're not putting, garbage going in, garbage coming out. I said, your models are worthless. He got very offended at that, but I mean, it is what it is. If you're not using the right numbers, and apparently they're not using oil field drawdown on anything. LaSalle County, they're telling me it's the same exact thing. So, the Dr. Brownlow's on the board there, and he was the only one that I could see that was outwardly favorable to us. And he's saying, they're projecting drawdowns of 100 feet. He goes, in 2080, he says, I've already had 300 feet drawdown in my wells. He says, I've had to lower all my wells. Much farther than their models, because their models aren't any good, because they're not using real numbers. And so, again, I think we need to get on board to be able to get financing, and we're not going to do a district without a real number. And so it's got to be more than 50,000 acre feet,
Yeah, Commissioner, first and foremost, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So I know you don't speak for the entire
No.
committee, right, with Webb County, but do you think you all are in favor of signing this TRO with us?
I
so
did, we
together?
brought
I
it
think it's
up at
stronger
this
that
last
way.
meeting, and I mentioned it, and we have our two administrators here, Lalo and Leroy, and we've already contacted legal counsel, and we're very much in favor of it.
Your commissioner's court and the judge would more than likely be in favor of signing it with us as well.
I believe that we have the votes to,
Great.
I think because it just protects our interests.
Absolutely.
There's just no reason why to do it. And like I say, I don't know if we're gonna go down and get down and dirty and change the way these groundwater districts operate. That may be a little beyond our scope. It should be.
Maybe something we need to do, we're gonna need to look
But
at for sure.
we tried to get legislation last time to at least get those counties that don't have a groundwater district, at least a seat at the table. Just say they must have somebody appointed on one of those, the Region M board. So at least we have a say, we can do that. That may end up being worse for us, though, because if we get outvoted, whatever it is, 9-1 or whatever, whatever the board makeup is. So I'm hoping the TRO at least will make them nervous enough to not want to do discovery and grant us some kind of compromise. Again, I don't know whether it's enough or not, but we're, like David said, we're losing out on free money.
We've got to try.
Even if
harder
it's
to do it right.
$100,000.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's the taxpayer that are gonna be paying the bill at the end of the day. Thank you, Commissioner, again, for being
All
here.
right, thank you.
I'd like to hear, Mr. Neb, from Dr. Alzabet, just so we can get a good understanding of how this impacts our utility and our responsibility to our ratepayers.
Yeah, Mayor, Mr. Chavez and Dr. Alzabet were able to attend that meeting as well too, and Dr. Alzabet has more information to put into this mix of our conversation. Yes.
Go ahead. Come on
That
up.
may lead, Mayor, if I may, that may lead into the item number 3 as well. So I don't know if,
You want to listen to the item first?
no, I mean, that may lead into item number 3 as
Oh,
well.
okay.
They may be, the same
All
thing.
right, okay, go ahead.
If you can, yeah, I think it will tie in.
Motion to bring up
the
item
item.
number 3.
Yes.
Okay, but we have a motion on the first item.
Well, we need to hear the presentation before we continue with those
Alright.
full motions prior to.
Okay.
So motion to bring up, item number 3 as well on the agenda.
Okay. Motion?
There's a second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed.
Technically, we should rescind the other motions that are on the table, right?
Then bring-
Mr. Morales?
Motion to rescind the previous motions.
And go.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed.
Motion to bring up item number 3.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed.
Item
Item 3, discussion with possible action to receive an update on the city's supplemental water supply efforts, including the proposed project with Legacy Water Supply Corporation and any matters related to. And this item's important as we move closer and closer to a point of no return based on a series of eventual consequences as they evolve in our primary water sources of the river. There's no secret that the river will not grant us and sustain the community's growth for much longer. And from constant discussions with our Mexican neighbors, their water needs are as critical or worse than ours. So our secondary water source has to be a priority. For people that are familiar with the Corpus Christi water dilemma, this could be Laredo if we don't act. And if we do not stay in front of growing demand with proper action or planning, we're creating our own emergency. So a motion with this item would be to instruct management to take the next step with our secondary water proposal, which should include a rate study and capital improvement needed so city council can act.
Before we act on that motion, Mayor.
Let's have the presentation.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. In my presentation, I'm gonna a little bit shed some light on with the gentleman discussion and what GMA 13 means for us, and also address the second point in our agenda item about where we are on our secondary water or supplementary resources and where we are as a city under the secondary committee that was assigned under this council to pursue different options. And it will end also with our integrated water resources management. It's not just the supply and the demand. So let me again, I'm new to this GMA 13, and I think we were, we went there in person. We drove 2 hours. I knew more about Mr. Ramon in those 2 hours than I've been in a year, so it was really a great travel. But really, GMA 13 is a ground management system, and what that means is a bunch of counties sit together, and they agree that a software or a model like ModFlow or a kind of groundwater, so where they enter the data, how many everyone pumps, and they look at the aquifers, and they have different aquifer systems, and they test how much every county pumps, and they do the math. They crunch the numbers and say, okay, if you do this, here's what happens to the water level. Goes up, goes down, and they use it for every type of aquifer that they have, and that's including the aquifer of Carrizo, Wilcox, and Queen City, and others. And they look at it as a regional issue, so they don't look at it as a county, they look at it, and just for the novice of what does that mean, a groundwater is not like a river. The water doesn't flow from upstream to downstream, so you're looking at upstream. It's a pressurized system. So anywhere you use the water in that system, it impacts others. It's like a tire. Once you puncture, it will impact everyone. So that's why these groundwater management areas are to control what one can do and how they impact others. I just wanted to make sure you know what is that really means and what is their authorization is. So under that area, they sit together and they look at every county that is involved in this group and this area and measure every year, or I don't know how their cycle is. They throw these numbers into their model and they come up with how much each county can use to maintain a fair and maintain sustainability of the aquifers. If you don't do that, I think Mr. Earl alluded to that. You still can pump, but because you're under a management agreement, you have to align with others. You can't just do it in your own because that restricts your use, but you benefit from state level funding and all of that because you're working as a team and you understand the impact of the aquifer. We were there, I think Dr. I forget his name, met and he showed us like tons of data and models and they had tested left and right and center and here's what they came up with. Based on the numbers, and I think Mr. Earl actually well spoken about the volume, but they have been testing what would happen if Webb County used their maximum. And I don't want to get into the numbers again because I thought this was like a research study on its own, but their kind of reasoning was if the county used more water, that would end up using what we call the reservoir or the safe yield of the aquifers, which means they're going to dry out and impact them too. And I was making sure, does that make sense? And how is that? I don't have a proof of scientific data. I don't have the full PhD work that they've been doing, but I know that their kind of motivation that if you do more in your area, it will impact us. So they did do actually different scenarios, and I'm not going to get into the numbers, but the moral of the story here really, based on their assumption, based on their calculation, the counties of LaSalle, McMillan, and DeMette counties will be impacted to a certain degrees differently based on Webb County usage. And that's why I don't get into the policy of the politics of it, but they have that kind of validation that if you do that, you're going to impact us in their systems. And I think, and I don't quote me wrong, you guys might have more information than I have, but the way they portray that if the Webb County goes higher volumes, that will basically either empty the reservoirs at their end, and therefore you might see that kind of behavior about resistance to increase the volumes. So this is really more on the technical side of that GMA 13. So what does that mean for us as a city? Number one, yes, we need to fight for our rights because it's important to make sure that our security interests and long-term planning are preserved. And I want to also make sure that we have to be, I think, clear about these are associations. They are groundwater areas, and we should strongly also advocate for something to be at the same table there. Fighting as a Webb County versus all of these agencies in this day and age will be very difficult. You have to have your own district. You have to be within that system. They speak, they can get funding, we can't because we're not a district. So we are either in or either out. That doesn't mean we cannot pump water as much as we can within your rights, but you cannot have that, kind of support when you're not a district. So I would say summary in that one is really, we should look at groundwater management tools, improve local representation, and long-term planning within the GMA. So we have to work with them. We have to create our own districts and try that. I'm not suggesting any kind of reversal or appeals or whatever. I don't want to be in that kind of situation. But I think if we need to be effective, we have to understand the language that they are talking about, and more importantly, understand the science that they're putting there. Whether we agree with it or not, I used to do modeling, that type of modeling, I don't know, probably 10 years of my life. And I think it's right, garbage in, garbage out, but it's a science. And you have to, in one way or another, honor what their PhD guys are doing, and we need to respect that and work within that system. So that is really the gist of those two, and that on the GMA. And if you may allow me, I'm going to move to the next piece about secondary water piece. So right now, where are we? Legacy project, we are still reviewing the water supply review. So we are waiting on the water quality blending study and the related technical information. So we are still waiting on that information to understand the impact of water quality that has higher salinity or higher, it's a brackish, it's 1500 around, to our water, which is around 650, and understand how is that possible and what is the blending ratio and all of that operational issues. And I think the study is already being commissioned by a consultant, and we have not yet received that data. So that's where we are right now. That's as much as we know right now. So I cannot recommend anything at this time because we don't have the data yet. On the Eagle Pass, I just met 2 weeks ago with the director from Eagle Pass. He came to Laredo and we spoke like for 2 hours. And there was a lot of good ideas, but they're in the same situation we are in. They're going actually for oil fields, Permian aquifers, very deep, highly brackish, highly mineralized. And from really kind of trying to blue sky what is the best path forward as neighboring municipalities is really advocate for the desal option. We have to start looking into something really that is sustainable and going. We know groundwater is there, but it's very not sustainable. We have water, but you have to do a lot of brine injection. So I think we had a lot of we met on the idea of we need to work, and he's already, and I'll bring this maybe to the council later on, about the idea of starting advocacy group for the desal option from the southern areas. And I'm not talking about Corpus Christi. I know they're having their issues, but that is one of the most viable and sustainable solution, and it would be probably the best permanent solution for the city of Laredo and others. So we just need to think of it as a long-term versus, trying to see groundwater here, groundwater there, which is really a very interesting and difficult undertaking. The last piece on
Dr. Elspeth,
sorry.
excuse me, just a really quick question. Speaking on these topics specifically, we spoke several months ago, a year ago maybe, about looping our wastewater
Yes,
to not having to use so much from the Rio Grande and other sources.
correct.
And obviously this may be a problem for us, getting more water or more acre feet. Are we in the process of working on that as well? Because that was gonna save us 23 million gallons a day, I think it was?
Yes, sir, and it's the next slide.
Okay, that's
Next
coming up.
slide, exactly.
Perfect, thank
So
you.
you're ahead of me. So on the next one that we have discussion with, and we're having a preliminary evaluation, it's called Jasper Ruth Ranch. So it's 35 miles north of Laredo. And we have met with the owner of the ranch, and he spoke about the water there. It's around 650 to 750 ppm, which is very comparable to the water we have. We are looking at some numbers and all of that. That would be something we can present to the council later on upon request. But we're really looking into those details right now. And I, as personally involved, and the secondary committee is also involved, reviewing their technical proposal. And upon request from the council, we can provide those information later on if they want to do that. So we have some information to share. So that's really the gist of where we are on the supplementary water supply. Councilor Gutierrez, to your question, is the next step is here's where we know chasing the secondary water source alone is not going to be enough. We know it's going to be a very expensive undertaking. With that, we have to diversify our strategy. So we look at the supply, and we have to look at demand management and storage. On the supply, we have to look at fight on our water rights, whether that means buying more land, more rights. We have to keep going. And I honestly suggest maybe later on for the city manager, I hope you will agree with that, is we might have a small office just to buy more rights, chase other rights in the river upstream and so on, so we keep as much of that share. Right now, our shares is 50 million gallons a day, or acres per feet, I guess, and we're around 35 to 40 million. So we're not even hearing our rights, but we're going to get soon if we have more business, more development. And I think it would be great to have more rights as increasing supply. We have to look at Amistad Dam Reservoir as a more strategic level, 30,000 feet, around how do we protect that reservoir and coordinate. I think Councilor Segrao, you brought that last time, and I think it's really important to understand that reservoir is kind of our lifeline. If that something happens to that reservoir, we're really going to be in big problem. I'm not honestly worried about the drought as much as the safety and integrity of that dam, plus the water quality, blue-green algae stuff that we know it happens all the time. And as well, assess groundwater evaluation, like if we have, legacy or the other one or that, these are options, but we have to diversify is the word for that.
Right.
And finally, regional desalination, which I spoke about, we really have to start looking at the ocean side and see what can we do as a whole, southern Texas situation. Otherwise, we're just going to keep spinning our wheels around where that water is coming from. On demand, the usual conservation, which is we want to continue to do, this drought response, and I'm pleased to say that we're actually finalizing the drought surcharge. I think it was approved by council 2 years ago. For summer, when we are heading into the next level, that surcharge will be probably activated, and we will have that thing to address the kind of issues we deal when we have a demand problem. We have to address the growth. Where is that money coming from? Does growth pays for growth? Because every option you're going to hear now going forward, whether it's groundwater or any other source, it's going to be at least 5 to 10 times more costly than our existing water from the Rio Grande. Our Rio Grande costs us 2.75 by 1,000 gallon. It's going to be north of that anyway. So we need to know, is growth going to pay for growth? Because you don't want to also put that on the ratepayers. So there's that kind of philosophy about if we're going to go different, where is that money coming from and who's going to pay for it? We have to look at asset management. As I said, where our losses are 13.5% of our daily consumption. And if you do the math, it's around 5 million gallons a day. That 5 million gallons a day, if you do it in any kind of secondary water source, that's around 150 to 200 million. If you throw that, and if you go just to 2% or 1%, you save a lot of money. You save a lot of water and saves you in case of emergencies. Mayor, as you said, instead of sitting there for 8 hours because half the water is lost in the network, you can survive a longer time. So that's water that's fully treated, excellent quality that just gets lost because of the network. And of course, pressure management and billing. We have a system that is duct tape. We're trying to recover all of that cost, and it's not covering the expenses. So we have to invest in our recovery and recoup. That's the only, I call it the golden geese. Unfortunately, it's not a good terminology, but that's the only revenue for the utility to keep up with covering the expenses. And if we're not up to that, one will start to be behind on our recovery of cost. Finally, the Casablanca, and this is to your question. So right now we produce 23 million gallons of treated wastewater. 1.4 goes to golf courses and parks. County and Del Mar, I think there's another one that they use that water. And they have a long-term contracts. It's not even recovering the cost, but this was like done years ago. So as we renew these contracts, we'll start to see how we can recoup the cost at least of that water that goes there. But the biggest ticket that we think is and it's probably very doable, is the Casablanca. Casablanca now is a lake or a man-made lake that whatever comes into it, it doesn't go anywhere because of the high evaporation. Just evaporates. If we push those 23 or half of that, that will increase the volume there. And the water that has to go there, it will be even higher quality than the water that exists already there. So what you do now with that treated wastewater, it's your reservoir. If the city has a planned outage or upsets, you can direct that water back to the system for drinking, and you could probably survive 45 days uninterrupted production. And it's in the backyard, it's very close, or what we need some treatment of the tertiary treatment, and then pump that water back. And we need some air cover at the county level and support, because it's run by a, I think, state level agency, and we just need to do some, and we've already submitted application to every potential agency, congressman, state, everything, for $25 million to see if we can get a grant to move forward with that. So I don't know if we're gonna hit the jackpot or not, but that's already something we've already executed. I spoke with NatBank, I spoke with Texas Water Board, I spoke with EPA, and everyone we could imagine that we've touched on that. That will be the case. And finally, the Jefferson El Pico, which you saw last week. I think if there's any flagship for this city one day, is to remember that if one day one goes down, the other can support the whole city uninterrupted. And I think that's it of the update.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Alcindor.
Thank you. We have a public comment on this item. Jordan Fornance.
For now, we're good. Thank you.
Did you want
Thank
our presentation as well, Mayor? Because Jordan's our
It's a
hydrologist.
public comment.
He's our hydrologist. He's here on behalf of Legacy Water Supply Corporation.
Yes, well, he's
Is he here for public comment, or he's gonna be talking on your
He's going
behalf?
to be talking as part of our presentation, but he signed up because he didn't realize he'd have to do that.
Okay, that's fine, then we can, he's gonna talk with that.
Okay, that's fine. We'll have you talk. All right.
Mayor and Council, this is on item 3, and I'd like to try to bring a little clarity to the situation. Trying to exit the slideshow here, but it's not cooperating. Okay, thank you. So what I'd like to do is just speak to you a moment about, yeah. I'd like to speak to you a moment about the status of specifically the Legacy Water Supply Corporation project, one of the alternative projects that you've been working on for about 4 years now. And when I tell you this, I want you to understand that Laredo, in my opinion, should be looking at every option it has for supplemental water. Not just one, but every option it can look for. Because you need diversification as well as, right now you're 100% on the river. I'll get into this in a minute, but you're 100% on the river. What the doctor said about Casablanca, I'm a big proponent of recycled water. It's water you're just letting out into the river. Save it if you can. That project, I can tell you, I've been doing this for 35 years. It'll have to go through quite a permitting process to be able to do that, and then have it as a potable water source to bring it back in. You got to build pipelines over your plants to get it there to treat it. That's all good. You need to go forward with that, in my opinion, for what it's worth. But it's going to take 5 to 7 years at minimum to do it. At minimum. But you should keep that water if you can, just to be clear.
Mayor, I just want to clear with,
Okay.
I know we had a Richard Raymond had requested to speak, and I just don't know
Yes,
if
of
he's got a
course.
time
Yes,
limit
that's
on
right.
him.
Yes.
If you don't mind, because I would like to,
Let him talk.
thank you.
Mr. Raymond, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to talk about the initial item, which was the idea of the GMA 13 and, you know, the possibility of a TRO or legal action, hopefully the city and the county. As Commissioner Galo mentioned and Mr. Earl mentioned, I was also at the meeting. It was in Pleasanton, Texas. I used to represent that county, so I know it well. And I want to say largely what I said then. I'm pretty consistent when I don't care if it's a bigger city or a smaller town. I said, when I used to represent this city in 7 rural counties, 25 rural towns, and I grew up in one of them, Benavides, town of 1900, I used to say, we need to work as a region. We've got to work as a region. That's the only way we prosper. That's the only way we do well. Now that I represent Laredo, I said, we have to work as a region. That my message hasn't changed, and I think this is a wonderful example of why we have to work as a region. We talk about this all the time, that the impact that we have here, Laredo, on so many other areas, it's well established, right? So what they did there at that meeting, and we all spoke, and Ramon was there, and so many folks were there, we all spoke, and I think we were, you know, made sense. But what we also found out going into it is, as David Earl laid out, is that initially they had approved, based on their hydrologist, hey, 20,000, you know, acre feet. And then I think the morning of the meeting at 6 in the morning or something, you got an email and to change it back or something dumb like that. I mean, it was really something dumb. It wasn't based on anything that, you know, made sense or a sense of fairness. And so, and that board kind of left it up to the Winter Garden contingent, which is essentially 3 counties, I think. Dimmit, Zavala, and I think, what's the other one? Dimmit, Zavala, and the South. So they kind of left it up to your area of the region, so we'll go with what you want to do. And very candidly, even if we had had a groundwater district from Webb County, and we had a seat on that board, I'm not sure it wouldn't have gotten run over anyway, right? And you know, so Mayor, council members, what I will tell you is it's very clear, you know, every session we talk more about water, every legislative session. Well, it's real clear right now because the speaker, the charges by the speaker on our interim hearings is a lot of focus on what we're going to do with the future of water in the state of Texas. And I go into it thinking about, all right, what does that look like next session? What's happening right now with us in Laredo and the GMA 13 and I guess in the Region M is that, you know, you're looking at, wait a minute, are we not going to give consideration when we're talking about where water goes to where people live and how many people live there? I mean, of course the answer is we should give it consideration. And so in this case, you've got Webb County, which has so many more people than almost all those counties because the GMA 13 includes part of northeastern Bexar County. So obviously some of that is San Antonio. But we are by and far, you know, the largest county population-wise, and we're growing. And because we're expanding the bridge, I mean, you all know, legacy, everything else, we're going to keep growing. So, you know, I think if you decide to move forward, and let me say for the record, I hope you do, and I hope the county does. And it was, you know, I gotta tell you, the first person that said after the meeting was Commissioner Gaylor. He said, TRO. He said, because then it'll, you know, sort of peel back the layers of the onion that we can see what their process was. And we can say, this wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. And candidly, if you move forward in that direction, the city and the county, whatever we discover, it's gonna help us a lot next session in figuring out what's a fair way to move forward and what these things look like. Because setting it up the way we did now, it's not working well. But as I said, even if we'd had a groundwater district, it probably wouldn't matter. They probably would have run over us anyway. So that's not gonna work. At the end of the day, we better look at where people live. That doesn't mean that you don't care about the little towns. I'll always care about the little towns, right? When you grow up there, you're never gonna forget that. I mean, I love the rural areas. That's where I come from. However, you can't forget the people in the bigger cities too. Like, we don't count. We have to count, right? And by the way, we're talking about getting water. We're not talking about pumping water that's coming. We're going to go drill it over there in another county and bring it over here. We're talking about water that wells that we would drill right here in Laredo, Webb County rather, and get the water from there. So it's like, come on, guys, let's balance this out in a fair way. I think they made a very strategic mistake when they did that the other day. Completely ignored us, our testimony. Completely ignored that the fact that the process that got us there was severely flawed. And if we don't say anything, if y'all don't say anything, then you know how it goes. Well, you never said anything. You never told me. You didn't complain. Yeah, you came and said a little bit, but the council didn't do anything. The commissioner's court didn't do anything. Must not have been that important. That's a position that you take if you're them. Because I guess it didn't matter that much, right? So anyway, I hope, and by the way, I have to say, my council member, I live in Dr. King District, and hey buddy, how you doing? He's been texting me. He's on his way back from Georgia, but apparently he's able to text, not just me, some of you. So, and I know he cares about this issue too, and he's my council member. So thank you for taking an interest too, Dr. King. But anyway, I'm glad to try to answer any questions, but as we go into this next session, it will be a, quote, big water session. And I think there are 80 counties right now, like Webb County, that don't have members on those boards. We're not the only ones. We're probably, I bet if we look at those 80 counties, we may be the most populous one that doesn't. So we may be the ones that can sort of make the case for everybody else about fairness and how we move forward. Anyway, I'm glad to answer or try to answer any questions, if you have any.
Is it possible to bring up that water thing they have over there to distribute the water more adequately? The water board that they have over there? Is it
Absolutely.
possible to?
I think part of it, you know, because I think before it gets to the final plan that gets to the Texas Water Development Board, as I understand it, again, I think David Earl might speak to this more clearly, but I think before it gets to that final presentation where the Water Board or Region M, whoever finally approves it in January, early January, if you all take a legal action, it may move them to reconsider, just as they reconsidered going from 20,000, which is what they were going to do, a few days later moving it back, to 916. I mean, I think there is, as I understand it, there's still time before their final answer and before the plan is finally given to the Water Development Board. But again, David, is that right, David?
Yeah, there's time, but the process will still be flawed. You don't challenge it.
Right. It's still, yeah. Let me just tell you, at the end of the day, I hope that we can get them to reverse their decision and to move back to at least 20,000. And we'd like to be 50,000. I think we're justified in 50,000. But but even if they do, my guess is they're not going to move it back unless you all do something, right? But even if they do, I think it will shed light on the whole process and how we move forward and what makes most sense. So, hopefully they change it in time. But whether or not they do, I think that any action that you all take, the city and the county, may well be very, very valuable for us when we get back up to Austin in January.
Mayor, okay. Mayor, do we have any other presentation?
Anybody?
I was gonna just ask, and Mr. Earl might be part of the answering the question. And take me a little bit through the whole legal process here. Obviously, the TRO is the most important thing we do today. And then, I'm not sure if whatever decision they make at this level, well, first of all, we're trying to stop it from moving forward, and then bringing it back so we can negotiate. Then from there, I'm trying to wrap my head around it as to what level, or is it at any level gonna go back to the state for any reconsideration?
So it doesn't come back for reconsideration. The way the process works, the GMA 13 set the desired future conditions. In other words, tell you how much water you get to withdraw from your county, okay?
Right.
Everybody from then on just basically looks at what they did and puts it together and takes it up to the state. And then the state just looks at what they did and everybody did, and the state collect it and make a plan. You can try to challenge it, but it's much more difficult, in my opinion, to get Region M to change something. They don't have the hydrologists that looked at it. They don't have the staff that did it. They're not in the counties that are involved. So they're more reluctant to make a change at their level, a removed level, down in the valley, about what happens in Webb County. And they're going to defer to the counties that are around each other in GMA 13. It just makes sense. That's what we face. That's a challenge. That's why I think you have to bring an action pointing out, and even an action claiming that, because they did, these representatives acted ultra virus to their obligation under the law to act a certain way and do certain things. They completely ignored it. You got to call them out individually on it and make them reconsider their decision, do the right thing, because then you're in the right place. And when you go forward, you don't have to go fight on 3 different levels, because it's right going forward, and
Right.
you can do that. And I will say that this isn't just our hydrologist. The hydrologist has been representing the collective Agua. Jordan Furnace, doctor of hydrogeology at Texas University. I get it mixed up. He's a Longhorn, not an Aggie. I forgive him. But he actually was the GMA 13 hydrogeologist for a long period of time. He quit, and I'll let him come up and tell you why, and get a peek behind the curtain of what's going on there. It's not me just coming and tell you this. We know this thing for a fact. I think it's why he quit, but I'll let him speak to that.
But I was just gonna mention that, and again, the TRO process puts a stop, we'll wanna put a stop to it. I don't know, the litigation process, it begins from there. Because I'm not sure that these guys, they don't seem to me like they wanna budge. And I think litigation is gonna be the ulterior motive to get them to respond to us.
Councilman Garth, I'll put it to you this way succinctly. I trust a Webb County judge to make a good decision a lot more than I trust the Winter Garden bureaucrat who's been running the show. We're not getting a fair shake with them. They don't even answer to anybody here. What do they care? It's all about what they get for their people.
Exactly.
But I trust a Webb County judge to do the right thing, the legal thing, to enforce the law and make them do the right thing. I trust that. I don't trust them anymore. I've been there too many times.
All right.
Thank you.
So, if I could give this presentation briefly, I respect your time, but it's important that you hear this.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
just have a question for Richard and for Representative Romo.
Go ahead.
Representative, when you talk about the Texas legislature coming forward and really considering water this next session, are we now at a point where the oil and gas industry is going to be examined about their use of fresh water versus the needs of the population in Texas? Because they're acting, we were hearing it's 750,000 gallons per well, up to 1 million gallons, and that's for one drill. And if you drill again, you have to use that same amount of fresh water. And where does that calculation play into this consideration of preserving groundwater resources for the populations that live in these Texas counties, especially in the west?
I would assume that we will look at all water sources, all water uses and all water demands, which is really what you're talking about. Just like I said, what demand are we gonna have here in a city of 260,000? We're more than that by now, guys, but let's say 260,000. What are our demands here and what are the demands in Pleasanton, right? They're very different. So I'm sure we'll look at all the water demands and with reference to oil and gas drilling, I don't know about you all, but I know I drove over here in a car. And as long as people are driving vehicles, we're gonna need gasoline.
I don't mean to suggest that we would stop, but we're looking at the
I think all of
groundwater
that is
resources.
figured in the calculation. Is like, do we want more reliance on imported oil? Or do we want more reliance on domestic production? So, that's part of the debate. That's part of the consideration. You've got to balance those things out. Will we look at? I'm sure we will, because you know what? We'll want to make sure that counties like Webb County, where we do drill, that we're able to get the water that we need. Are we more important? There was a point years ago, you know, this was before any of you were on the council, but I was already in the legislature. There was a point, and John, you'll remember, where I think Webb and Zapata were providing 25% of all the natural gas in the country. These two counties, you see? Well, in that way, obviously, we play a more important role just as we do on trade, right? We play a disproportionate role. So, yeah, I think that we'll probably look at that too, and look and see, okay, where do we need to, you know, where do we need to go? Where do we want to go with reference to drilling? How much water does that mean? And how important is it? Yeah.
There's some scientific research going on about water used for oil and gas and then being reclaimed and cleaned with new technologies.
And we should look at all of that, absolutely. You look at all of that, and then, of course, you look at what that cost is and so forth. But we should always look at, you know, what's the most efficient and the best way to do that, you know?
Right. So all of that is gonna be looked into.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
If I may, I just wanted to point out, I think all of that needs to be taken into account. I made that point, you know, the oil and gas industry, but for the majority of that, it's not fresh water, okay? The main water that's extracted here in Webb County out of the Carrizo is brackish water. Anywhere from 2,000 to 8,000 TDS. So it's, can be, has a lot of dissolved solids in it. But, you know, I'm sure the doctor can explain to you, you know, the Carrizo is much deeper here than when you go to northern Webb County, northwest Webb County. And so it gets fresher as it's going up. So we're pumping from the bottom end, and it takes a long time. They said some of that water that we're pumping out here is 2,000 years old, or hasn't moved in 2,000 years, because it's very slow and, like I said, the deepness of it. But I talked to our representative in Austin that's, you know, close to the governor, and I said, I even told him, I said, all this needs to be taken into account, because if you're gonna do a Texas water plan, you need to do a Texas water plan, and that includes all water is being pumped, because it's gonna affect everybody. Like I said, LaSalle and other counties above us have seen 200 and 300 foot drops in their well levels, you know, the static level of the water. So, and that's all due to oil and gas. Now, that's not saying they're out of water, but just the static level. You can't pump as easy, costs you more to extract it and things. It's not affecting the quality of the water, but I think so. But again, if we want to have a real plan, we have to include all these numbers, and that's why I was telling that hydrologist here, I said, you know, you're just putting garbage in, and that's what you're getting garbage out. And you know, it's worthless to us. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'll try to make this as quick as possible. I know you've been here a long time, but I know you know how important this issue is, so I won't apologize too much. The goal of this briefing for item 3 on the agenda is to explain where the Legacy Water Supply Corporation's project is that you're working with in conjunction with them, show why moving the project now protects the ratepayer, and identify the action council should take to protect the ratepayer's interests. Today, what I'm asking you to do is consider directing staff and council to complete review of the water supply agreement and multi-party agreement. They've had it since about February. They've been looking at it. The county has too, but the county hired just recently a specialist to look at it. We'll have probably their county's comments and finalized agreement will probably be back, I'd imagine, by next week. And they can go take action on it. Now, they've got a water project. Legacy's already had a water project. The LMMD has a water project. They'll have a water project because they've signed an agreement. The city won't, because it doesn't have an agreement. And I want to explain that you've got to bring that agreement forward and act on it in order to continue our efforts to get funding from Texas Water Development Board, the USDA, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, NADBank, and others who we've been speaking to for over 2 years and who are willing to fund the project. But they always ask, has the city had their audit done yet? That's one question. The second is there a signed agreement with the city yet? No. So that's the problem. This preserves your options. It does not approve a final rate or make a final commitment to participate in the project today at all, because it all has to come back to you again. But we can't move to the next level without the agreements. So the biggest problem that's all been discussed today, One River, a growing risk. Laredo needs supplemental and emergency water sources. You know that. You've been working on it for 30 years as a community. You're 100% dependent on the Rio Grande. The drought is horrible. Job growths continue, but they need to have water to happen. And when when the supply is delayed or forced further away, the ratepayers are gonna pay more money. If you are forced to go buy water from Winter Garden, and with all due respect to the idea about desal, look, desal, Corpus Christi's on the coast, it's paying $1,400 an acre foot just to treat the water. And we have rate knowledge. We can tell you what this water will cost you. I can tell you. We have a rate study going on right now. It's the third one we've done. So a secondary water source is basic water security and ratepayer protection. The project at Legacy is designed to supplement the Rio Grande River, not to replace it. It will never replace it. Local Carrizo Wilcox groundwater source is in Webb County. It's like 13 miles up the road. Wholesale water delivered to the city under this project, nearby source that's not hauled or piped from far away, designed for supplemental and emergency resilience. It supports families, ratepayers, future growth, the colonias for the counties, jobs in the Port of Laredo. So let's look at what's happened so far. Where's the project? You want to know the status? I'm going to give you the status. It's been a multi-year process we've been engaged in. In 2023, Legacy responded to your RFI for supplemental and emergency water supply. We were one of 3 that responded. June of 24, we presented to the city council. I've made probably at least 4 or 5 presentations to the council, to the committee on utilities. 2024, the city approved, y'all actually approved a resolution authorizing membership in the Legacy Water Supply Corporation and appointing Joe Nubb to be that representative. The problem is, under a water supply corporation, it can only contract with its members that have business with it. If you don't have a signed contract, we can't put them on the board yet. Doesn't mean you have to buy any water, but you have to have a contract, a service contract, to be able to be eligible to be on the board. You have to make an application, have a contract for service. Whether you take 1 gallon or you take 50 million gallons a day, you have to have a contract to be on the board. And we want you on the board. We want the county on the board. But there's just this lack of being able to move forward. City, county, the LMD, and Legacy Water Supply Corporation unanimously approved the AGWA groundwork. We created AGWA because of this issue with the contract, but it can only do so much on seeking funding, because ultimately the sponsor of the project has to seek the funding. And now the supply agreements are still under review by the city. And I'm encouraging you to direct them be reviewed by a professional water lawyer that has a background. Use the same lawyer the county's, they're fantastic lawyers, save money. It's the same exact agreement, word for word, except the party's name and the quantity of water being requested. Why? 2 for 1. Use the same lawyer.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
So the next thing is.
Mr. Earl,
Yes.
excuse me for the interruption. Mr. Nebb, what is the holdup with this? If you could explain to the council, please.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council, we've just been discussing that as well too. Now, one of the things that isn't on here is how soon we got the agreement. The agreement's been stuck in our hands for a little bit of time, but the agreement wasn't received in July, August of 24. We established a framework at that time, so it wasn't that long.
It wasn't until February of this year,
Yeah.
just a few months ago.
So we do have it in there, and I think that it's in legal's hands, and I know that Dr. Alzabet has reviewed it, and it's in legal's hands to finish up that, wrap that up. We've had conversations with Legacy as well too, to try to speed that process up a little bit on our side. But it is in our hands, and I was just talking with Mr. Morales on exactly.
Do you foresee an issue with it, or do you see us moving
No,
forward?
no, I believe it's just a step in there. I think the condition we had was, as we built this model, there were questions that would come back and forth from both sides in order to shore up what the concerns were with different pieces of this agreement. So, no, there's nothing wrong with the agreement. There's nothing wrong with the process. It's just making sure that the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted the right way to protect both the city's interests as well as Legacy's interests as we move forward. All the conditions, I think, the broader level conditions that Mr. Earl and I have talked about, we're all good with. We're very, very comfortable with exactly what that is. It's just, it takes a little bit of time, probably a little bit longer than everybody's comfortable with to get this through. So, thank you.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Yeah, just, Mr. Neff, just real quick, can you just, can we make this priority? One of the main priority things, I know, we're gonna have questions for our community. Just put them in the, I know, February, spend 3-4 months, and it's gonna take another 3-4 months. We just wanna make sure it's priority in the front of it.
Of course, sir.
Okay.
So you can do more studies about this if you want, but I can tell you, the studies have already been done, and that's why our hydrogeologist is here, and you hear from him, you heard about the Winter Garden antics as well as his very deep research on this aquifer. So the next step would be approving those agreements. So this is a real project, it's proven and it's ready. It's not a paper concept, it's very nearby, it advances the project, and can move quickly if the city moves. Private interests have already paid $40 million toward this project. Basically, I'll just be blunt with you. This whole effort, even going down and fighting with the GMA 13 for the last 5 years, doing all the hydrology, everything, it's all been paid for by one family trying to protect Laredo's water interests. One family. $40 million. I think the city spent, y'all contributed I think it's like 20,000 or something for that blending study, which we're grateful for. But it's private capital, it's already invested. The TCQ has already approved the water wells to be used for public drinking water. To John's point, most Carrizo wells, they have anywhere from 3,000 to 8,000 TDS. You're so blessed. There's fractures, there's fault lines. You have water that's 1,200, 1,300 TDS, very easy to treat. In fact, you don't even have to treat it. You blend it, and that's what Mr. Nebb and his team have realized. You bring it down, raw water, you put it with the river water, it's below. Its TDS doesn't have to be treated out with reverse osmosis. Saves you a ton of money on rates. It's right there. Pipelines. There have already been 46,000 linear feet of pipelines constructed in the ground and approved by TCQ for use as public water pipelines. You're not going to get any of that if we don't have an agreement. But I'll tell you who is. Weekly, we get calls from people saying, we want to buy water. We have this industry. We have this, battery company. We have this and that. We tell them no. We have a deal we're pending with the city of Laredo. We're going to respect that because if Laredo doesn't grow and prosper, it won't grow and prosper up there, whether a battery comes or not, whether a manufacturer comes or not. We're keeping our priorities straight. It's Laredo, Laredo, Laredo. The growth of this city and the county means the success of everyone. We're not going to take easy money, even though oil companies are willing to pay 75 cents a dollar a barrel, 42 gallons. This water for 1,000 gallons, it's very affordable to the ratepayer. I'll get to that in a minute. You're going to be amazed at what the rates are. And I can't understand why we're not moving forward. Treatment, the TCQ, this is a very difficult step, has already approved the treatment process. The initial plant is already constructed. If you go out 83, you'll see it. Water treatment plant, big, huge water storage tank, all paid for by private money while we're waiting on the city to make this decision. It's all been paid for. It's all been built. It's just sitting there right at 255 and 83 to come to the city of Laredo. Again, we've already talked about the agreements and where they're at. And we need action now on them. Private capital is carried there for years, and the wells, the permits, the pipelines, treatment design, public water supply approvals are already in place. The missing piece is the council action. And so financing and final rates can be developed. Without this action, we can't finalize a rate because we have to see what the review agencies are going to put as an interest rate based on everyone's credit combined. Then we know that interest rate, then we can give you a final rate, and then you can make a decision whether you want to do it or not. But until we have the agreement, we can't get there. The project will be put in the state water plan if we have an agreement. It really won't be, at least not for Laredo, if we don't. So what the agreements do, they allow the project funding plan to be finalized. They allow project to be in water plan for state funding applications. They let a final rate structure be created. We're waiting on one number, the finance cost. It keeps the project moving while funds are available because the funds are drying up. That $1 billion is going to be snapped up. In a few months, the window to get it is closed, and then it's allocated and it's gone. What the agreements don't do, they don't approve a final water rate. They don't approve a final bond financing or financial commitment. They don't stop the city from pursuing other supplemental water sources. They don't remove the final council approval of the final package once those rates are known. It doesn't do any of that. It just gets you the next step in the process. Action today keeps the ratepayers' options open, and final rates and financing will come back to you later. We'll get those quotes. Another reason action is needed today, the funding cycles, the project momentum, and the ratepayer protection will not wait. The funding windows, as we all know, they're closing. They come and go. Some are time cycle or cycle based. No signed agreement means the project is not going to be taken seriously in state water plan and no final financing model or rate picture can be finalized. The Water Supply Corporation can't wait on the city forever. At some point economically, they have an obligation to their membership, to their, the people they answer to make this water make money. Because that's what they're in business to do, is to get it out there to a user. Otherwise, why have the Water Supply Corporation? We receive, like I say, constant requests from big, and they don't end up coming to Laredo because everybody that wants to come is in y'all's CCN. That means y'all have to serve them. So they're coming to us and asking for water. We say, hey, you're in the city CCN. We'll give you a water commitment, but you got to be annexed. And then they kind of disappear because we don't have an agreement with you to finalize that. Water security. Delay increases supplemental risk supplies for families, business, and the port, and cost of water. Waiting it'll make the water more expensive for Laredo and the ratepayers in the future, not less expensive. The question is, do you want to work with local funded water or expensive outside water? The city should not be forced, this goes back to GMA 13, to buy more expensive water from 60 or 100 miles away when local Webb County water is available. To the extent you have it in your backyard, use it. You can't wait to keep studying other projects that are 100 miles away. Use what you got while you do those studies. Option A, move the project forward. Use Webb County groundwater in Laredo's backyard, keep the state and federal funding options alive, and develop a final financing and rate numbers and protect the ratepayers from avoidable higher costs. Option B, delay, don't take action, lose leverage. Outside districts can block local funding, we're already seeing it. Distant sellers may gain leverage over Laredo. Costs can shift from state assistance to local ratepayers, which it will, and Laredo's water future remains uncertain. Moving forward does not lock the city in, it protects the city's bargaining position and funding options across the board, even with other projects, because now you've got something to bargain with. So what is the required direction? Move the project to the next decision point, complete the legal review, we've already talked about that. Bring the agreements forward to you to look at, and we're actually going to be doing one more agreement that honors the annexation issues and the economic development issues we've discussed with the county and everybody's on board with. Continue the funding work. Continue working together through AGWA and the Water Supply Corporation to seek funding from everyone that makes it available to everyone else and gives it to them so you get your fair share. And keep your other options open. This project is meant to supplement your supply, not be the save-all. It's a supplement to it for a broader water strategy. And action today preserves those opportunities, and the final rates will come back later. So complete the agreements, keep the funding alive, protect the ratepayers. You shouldn't lose a local, real, shovel-ready water source because of outside districts are blocking funding pathways or because the city waited too long to act. Protect the ratepayers and your water future and move the project forward. That's the presentation. I can't stress it enough, and I know you take this seriously. I know how important it is to each and every one of you for your constituents. Other councils have come and gone. They haven't solved the problem. You're the first one, at least in the last 30 years I've seen, I've been practicing that long, 20 years, really actions moving forward with concrete steps, and I applaud you on that, you and your staff.
Mayor, Mayor? Yes, go ahead. Mr. Earl, thank you for the presentation, I appreciate it. Mr. Nebb, question, do you see an issue with us signing this contract and moving forward within the next 30 days? You've had the paperwork according to what was presented to us and you this in February.
Mayor, City Council, to answer the question, no, I don't see a problem with bringing this forward. As you know, that it has been in the city's hands since February of this year as well too. So we have been working on it. I think that keeping everything prioritized is always the challenge with what we're trying to get done. But
Right.
we're going to make sure that the agreement is proper and appropriate for the city of Laredo. We'll make sure that we take care of our partnerships and all of that. But I think we can bring it forward definitively by the beginning of the following month. But hopefully we can hit earlier. We have.
You need a motion to bring it back within the next 30 days, or I'd like to get
No,
started within 30
I mean,
days?
it depends on what you guys are comfortable with what you would like to do. We'll go through that. We've had the agreement in our hands, and so
Okay.
I would expect that any review that we has gone through at least a couple different levels through
Right.
that. I think that the challenge for Mr. Earl is that he's not had a response back from those that are that are reviewing the document as to whether or not there's any.
That was part of
Mr.
my
Mayor,
motion.
I'm sorry, so then, the motion then I would like to put on the table is, to direct staff to continue and get this contract signed, bring it back to council within 30 days to be sure that it's done within that time.
That was the initial motion on this item. Any proposals? We have second?
Can I discuss, discussion,
Yeah,
please?
something.
The only caution I would say is that we still haven't heard from Dr. Alsabet on any other issues. I'm sure that everything is gonna be leveled off from the legal standpoint of view to get this thing going. I just wanna make sure that we look at every angle, not to say that this doesn't have anything to do with the relationship that's gonna be
No,
caused here.
yeah.
But I do really feel that this council needs to be completely educated on every little thing that goes on with this contract. And the reason for that is because once we move forward from this, we're just gonna put it aside and we don't wanna be part of the problem that we stand in your way from moving forward.
And Councilmember, yes, when I look at the directive like this, for the staff as well too, that'll include Dr. Alzabet for his review as well as legal's review. Our goal will be to bring back an agreement that matches all those conditions. There's always the opportunity, though, that it could come back and we say, we can't make all these conditions work. I don't expect that's going to happen in this conversation, but just be aware that, yeah, we're going to take, the utility, with our master planning that we've already done and everything, and we'll bring everything forward with that. I just reiterate exactly what I just said with Mr. Earl as well, too, is that the challenge Mr. Earl has is that he's not had any a volley back with the conversation saying, this is our concern with whatever is in the agreement, if there's anything there.
Right.
And that's where his passion bleeds through within this conversation. So we will get that response back long before the 30-day window. And the intent will be to bring back a final agreement if we can get there for that. If not, I'll make sure you're all aware of what remaining issues, if there are any issues in there. I guess it goes back to your question, Councilmember, is that I don't see those issues because the broadest level, we all, both sides are in agreement with where we're trying to go with this.
Okay.
So I think we'll make sure that it's all covered with Dr. Alzabet within the utilities as well.
Okay, well, let's get it done. That'll be the second motion. First motion. Let's say, got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The first motion was to instruct management to look at the legal recourses option based on what was presented today, to include the county as well. That was the first motion.
Yes, sir, and I just want to say too, and we appreciate the work the staff's doing. They got a big boat to row because of all the things they face with infrastructure in the ground as well as this issue. I will tell you that we submitted these contracts, the multi-party agreement and the purchase agreement, to the Texas Water Development Board's legal counsel. They've already reviewed them and approved them because they're based on other contracts that other parties have done before on these type of funding programs. So I think that if there's anything that's an issue, we're gonna work in good faith with whatever response we get and get it. In fact, I'll tell you, the plan is that once the city and the county become members, you're looking at having a water supply corporation that basically you control. Right. Because you're the biggest user. And that's how it should be.
Sure.
And we all work together to make it cheap. And as far as rates go, without state funding, I've done this analysis, without state funding, you're looking at you have 70,000 customers roughly. Ballparking, you're looking at each customer without state funding to help with infrastructure, why it's so critical, paying about $42 a month more in water for this project. With state funding, it can be as low as $5 or $6 or more for up to 15 million gallons a day of additional water. That's kind of a no-brainer, if you ask me. But that's not, I'm not sitting in your chairs. I'm not the one who's elected. You are. You have the mission, not me. I'm just trying to do my job to make it happen. So I appreciate you taking the time to have this hearing. I appreciate your concern and your passion for your constituents and their safety and their well-being. And if you have time, you may want to hear from Dr. Fernandez about the backdrop. It could be a very good public record for what may be taking place from the legal action.
All right.
Mayor,
Yes.
may I just, Mr. Secretary, can you tell us what we voted? We had three votes out there. We did the TRO. Do we vote on TRO?
No, no, that was rescinded.
Right now,
Yeah, we haven't voted on it.
right now, we're talking on item number
Three.
three. There's a motion and a second, you all voted on it, now we need to go back to item number two.
Correct.
There's an amendment that was brought up by Councilmember Gutierrez, second by Councilmember Gonzalez. And then we have the original motion by the mayor.
Okay.
Can
I-
you tell us what they are, though?
Sure.
Can you read them, please?
Okay, so, the amendment by Councilmember Gutierrez was to include a TRO with the county and Legacy Water Supply and any other affected party. That was the amendment.
All right?
Second by
We can vote on
Councilmember
that one
Gutierrez.
first and
Yes,
second.
And
that
then-
was accepted.
If I may, I would just make it as broad as whatever legal action we need to stop this process, because I don't wanna be specific and just say it's a TRO is the only thing we can do.
Right, absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Do you want to ask him?
So we do vote on the amendment first,
Well,
and then
We
the,
need to amend that language to include it to be
All right.
legal action and not a
Oh, yeah,
TRO.
of course. Legal will take care of that, yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Okay.
And Mayor, could we have legal just comment on what he believes will be sufficient to cover what Commissioner Gala was talking about?
No, I agree with the commissioner, as broad as possible in terms of which agencies would be included.
Right.
All right. Do we need to add that to the amendment or
yes, Mayor.
make it as broad as possible?
Yes, Mayor, I already did.
Okay, great. All right.
Motion and a second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Now the original
motion, Mayor.
the original motion,
The
Mayor.
original motion was,
Item number,
to instruct management to look at the legal recourse options based on what we presented today to include the county as well.
yes.
And I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Number four, did you need to present something on?
Yeah, this is about the
This is
hydrologic
hydrologic, yeah.
conditions?
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
hear him.
let's go ahead before we go into the other item.
So I'll be very brief. My name is Jordan Fernandes. I am one of the PhD hydrogeologists that you mentioned. I have been studying hydrology in Texas for 20-plus years now. I've been working with Legacy Water Supply Corp. And prior to this round of planning, the round before this that ended in 2021, I was the person responsible for writing the GMA 13 explanatory report and doing that entire process. And that was the report that came up with the 916 acre feet a year that Webb County was allocated. I wanted to give you some color as to why that number where it came from. And at the time, nobody spoke up on behalf of Webb County or the city of Laredo. And so the other districts could say, we don't want Webb County to get any pumping into our plan. And why did they not want that? Because they established the desired future conditions for the entire region. They said, we want an average drawdown over the entire region to be whatever number they wanted. And by minimizing the drawdown in Webb County, which is a large land area compared to the rest of the counties, mathematically it made it look a lot better to pump a lot more up in Bexar County and Gonzales County and other places. So they just took advantage of your size and your non-voice on the board and said, we're not going to give Webb County any water, any realistic number of water. And that process has continued. The second reason that Winter Garden is so adamant about not getting water, not having Webb County get more water, is because they want to get money from it. And if they sell you water, they have to charge you an export fee from their district. So that's 17 cents per whatever unit they're charging. That goes from Webb County to Winter Garden to do whatever they want to do with it, right? So that is definitely a motivator for them. And then, of course, the third reason is mathematically, scientifically, we can show that if you pump water in Webb County, it reduces water levels in the adjacent counties. Same as if they pump water in Winter Garden, it reduces water levels in Webb County. So, they're really just defending themselves because they don't want you to pump water, but they're not being fair about it at all. And that's really what it boils down to. I do, as an engineer and hydrologist, I do like the concept of GCDs, groundwater conservation districts. I recommend that for Webb County, especially because they have no regulatory authority over oil and gas water usage, but they can study it and they can use the information that they garner to help manage overall water supplies for the county. And really having a voice on the GCD is very important, or sorry, having a voice on the GMA is very important. Whether that comes from a GCD head or is the county judge or some other, that's not important, to me at least. It's important that you have a voice. Having a GCD would allow somebody like me, some PhD engineer, to study your water resources issues and provide information to you and the county to help better manage the water supplies. So I'd be happy to answer questions.
Any
Mayor,
questions?
Yes. The Carrizo Wilcox Aquifer, when we've been discussing it, and really my knowledge of it is just based on what I've been hearing, right, how it impacts Webb County. We've been told it is a water supply that will last for 1,000 years. What is it any as stressed as all of the other aquifers in Texas? What is the latest science on the amount of water that exists in this aquifer? Because it sounds as if it's the deepest one that can be tapped in our area.
Well, in the area, yes. I mean, there's a portion of Webb County where your Carrizo Wilcox is only 100 feet deep, right? 100 feet below the surface. Right along I-35, you're talking more about 3,500 feet, right? So it's sloping downward to the southeast. To get the water that's in the southeastern portion, you got to drill deep wells, but there's a lot of water there. It's available. It's under decent pressure. You can get a good lot of water out. The Carrizo Wilcox in this area is not as stressed as it is in some other areas across Texas, but it is still under stress. And you know, in all honesty, we don't really know how long. It's not 1,000 years. I don't believe 1,000 years is realistic, especially if we pump it the way that we want to, and if recharge doesn't continuously, augment that. But for the next 50 to 100 years, I believe it's all there in the volumes that we need. That's the modeling that I've been doing.
And is it part of the Rio Grande Basin? That, in other words, is there some portion of it that feeds the Rio Grande?
No, it's too deep for that in this location. Further up gradient upstream on the Rio Grande, there is some Carrizo Wilcox water that's going to go into the Rio Grande, yes. But pumping here won't affect that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
make a few more comments. As consistently being like number 3 rate user in the water, of course, I have big concerns. And Joe and I served together when we had the secondary source of water secured in 2005? 2005, we were going to get water from Dimmitt County. They have wells that were producing 5,000 gallons a minute. It was going to be pure water, and clean water. It doesn't have to be treated. It's going to be piped all the way to Laredo. Imagine what we would have had there. All along 83, all the colonias could have been served. But I think you all have a great opportunity right now. I don't know what your daily minimum would be under a crisis situation, how many millions of gallons a day. But I would encourage you maybe to try to do a contract with Legacy since they're here now, at least in the short term, to say, we're going to take, is it 5 million gallons a day? I don't know, 1 million gallons a day, whatever it is, contract that amount. So you do have that emergency source, because like David said, I'm all for the Casablanca refilling. I think you could do Zacate Creek too as another storage. That's the easiest one. I wanted to do that a long time ago. It's the closest to the river. You build a weir down on the end, and it's short-term storage. It's not a lot of water. Casablanca, if we can make it a constant level lake, imagine how beautiful that will be. And you'll have water constantly flowing into Chacon Creek, going back into the river. The county is in the process of buying 3,500 acre feet of municipal water. So we're going to have a lot of excess river rights. We can help you all with that, because we'll probably lease them out in the meantime, because we won't have a use for it for quite some time. But, you have the ability to drill some brackish wells around close, to your plants, and supplement water there. Again, it all depending on blending, how much is going to be treated, and all those type of things. You can put them in other types of pits, but there's all kinds of process. But you have something now. Again, I don't know anything about their rates, you know, it may be kind of scary. I don't know, but, you know, but it's like insurance. Hey, if you need 1 million gallons a day just to keep the plants open, keep the tanks pressurized, so be it. You know, I think then you do a contract for that, and then you continue to explore it, but at least you have that safety valve in the meantime. Okay. Those are my personal comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Number 4, any other comments? Item number 4. Discussion and public update on active proposals, strategic efforts, and ongoing negotiations with Homeland Security and Border Patrol, including all related matters. The city had an update on the most recent negotiation with the Department of Homeland Security. I want to make it very clear that these negotiations have been occurring over several months. And we'll be providing more important update and announcement on ongoing discussions and negotiations with the Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Border Patrol. Now, these conversations that have been over the course of several months will directly impact our community, and it's very important that we keep our seat at the table through dialogue and negotiation. We also need to keep the public informed as we continue advocating for solutions that balance national security with the needs and safety of our residents. With that, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, and I have to digress just very quickly back to items 2 and 3 as well too, because one thing I think that we didn't cover during that conversation was this year we ended up partnering with Legacy and everything in order to do a blending study as well too, because, and what Mr. Galo talked about a little bit as well too, is part of the thing that we had to walk through that. We had to determine exactly how to blend groundwater with our surface water in order to not upset our plant. And that work was done. We actually understand it a lot more. And so that, I just wanted to make sure we added that to the conversation, because there's nothing being delayed. It is all about walking through the pieces to make sure that it is all there. So, all right. Mayor and City Council, just wanted to talk a little bit and about the border infrastructure updates and everything. We had Mr. Paul Enriquez out yesterday. Mr. Chavez spent the day with them walking the entire river. It was predominantly for the south end, but we also included areas up on the north end, and that's why we got a larger picture of exactly what was happening. This meeting was scheduled about 30 days ago in order to come out and do that, and as the mayor's press conference talked about it, we were very excited about some opportunities that we were seeing, so we believe that these negotiations are going very well. So the purpose of the update today is to provide a status on this federal coordination, address the recommendation for independent studies, and then outline the city's technical and legal approach. Just want to make sure that we kind of talk about some of these things, bring it back around. We have so much interest in what is happening along the border, as well as locally what's happening within Laredo. So with all that passion that is trying to make sure that we're making the right decisions, we wanted to give this updated report for you. Really quickly, I do want to acknowledge our ad hoc Riverfront Advisory Committee and the recommendation that we have received. It is important. That is a great group. We've talked about that before as well too. We appreciate their recommendation, and we have incorporated it into the overall strategy. I just want to explain the differences in how we're actually utilizing that data and what we're working on. The city readiness. This is something I wanted to make sure that everybody is aware. We have essentially a multitude of engineering firms on rotation through our engineering department and our utility department. We have geomorphologists on that rotation. We have hydraulic engineers on that rotation. And so we have pre-vetted engineering firms under contract already. We are able to trigger at the right time and at the right moment for all this input and this information. We don't have to go out for an RFP. We do not have to go out and seek that. We have pre-vetted engineering firms already under there. And so they are already available, and they are ready to initiate the analysis when it is appropriate. So we are prepared to act today We were prepared to act yesterday, and for tomorrow, we're not starting from zero. Our key constraint has been that no study without the data can be done. Otherwise, it is based upon too many assumptions within that. And so we had made that request, and we've talked about this in the last month, getting the CBP design and hydraulic modeling. I will tell you that as of yesterday, we started to receive the data that we were asking for. We're walking through that analysis. We're trying to figure out exactly what that is. The data appears to be really good data and is helping us make those determinations. There are already some pinch points that we can see based upon that information that we have to look at in greater detail. We expect what's going to happen is that the Border Patrol, as they utilize this information as well too, they will adjust their plans accordingly in order to meet those conditions of what's out there. So we are starting to receive that Border Patrol design and hydraulic modeling. The CBP has acknowledged the data will be provided. We don't have any reason to not believe that they won't provide the data when it becomes time, as far as what they have and available. We got updated mapping yesterday through Google Earth for the smart wall layout as to where we think it's going to go. The mayor alluded a little bit to it in the public press conference this morning as well too. We have gotten them to reduce their footprint and in different areas that are very sensitive to us. And of course, based upon the mapping that the posters that you see around here as well too, they actually came back with alternatives that were very similar to our alternatives in some of our sensitive areas, especially for the downtown area. But our key constraint with any of these studies that without that data, it is all about assumptions. It is all about the best opinion that we can have out there, and it's not defensible. Our goal and our conversation with our legal team has been that we want something defensible, that we can kind of hold people's feet to the fire with that data. This gets into the legal and strategic alignment. Timing is critical. We talked about this already. The Border Patrol is has a sense of urgency about their border security. And so we are trying to make sure that we are focused on the right things at the right time. So the timing is critical, and that came from our outside counsel for that. We have hired an appraiser that is looking at our property as far as that, because if we don't have our opinions as to the value of our property and they were to enact eminent domain, we're going to lose a leg of how we can actually negotiate. The study now does not assist in the right of entry negotiations. However, the data that we just received does, and I'll talk about that right at the end. And our strategy has always been to act when the analysis is defensible, and it's not about sequencing. It's about sequencing, not about delaying. The recommendation from our legal team has been, let's do the first things first, and then let's prioritize out what we're doing. If we're scrambling out there and we're doing too much, we're not going to stay focused on the initial prize. And I think that's the thing that has been very successful within what we're seeing now within these conversations. I've already shared this with the City Council as well too. Once we receive all of the data from that, we do plan on doing an independent review. We trust but verify is the way I will state this. We actually believe that the Border Patrol is going to provide exactly that. They're going to meet the 100-year base flood elevation compliance, and they're going to meet the less than 5% diversion of the IBWC standard. But we're going to want to independently verify that data and make sure that it is legitimate and make sure that they have followed through with exactly what they are. So the review will be independent. It'll be data driven, and it's going to be defensible. As soon as we can get that information, we do intend to recommend the independent review of its own. The interim work, this is some additional stuff that we started to add based upon all the conversations. And this involves the Tompkins report a little bit. What we are wanting to do is we are looking at, and we've actually started to talk with the geomorphologists, the hydraulic engineers that we have on our rotation, and said, can you look at the Tompkins report and how can we validate this information so we can utilize it as baseline information on our broader strategy and scale. And so we are looking at that. They are looking at the recommendations from the Riverfront Committee based upon what the council wants us to look at. And so we are walking through those pieces. We're putting those together in order to get there. Because what we want to do is the validation of that report, I think, is very important based upon the assumptions that are provided in that report. We would just want to make sure that, because when we stack that on top of the next studies and all the next reports and everything, we want to make sure that it has a very good ladder within that structure. The CBP alternative concepts, you have the three sets of drawings here. They provided us essentially 12 photos that this was from the Border Patrol and their consultants. This was not our version. I had my version, I believe, was prettier. I mean, it had stone columns along with wrought iron fencing, but this is acceptable, I think, when we talk about the federal government. So these concepts are being provided, and this is what we believe is very positive for us, is that from back in November when we first saw the berming mayor within the conversations, this is a movement forward within that, and this shows that ability. If we can stay at the table, we can actually influence and make sure that we're partnering with our partners and making sure that we do border security the way that works for everybody. And I think what it does is shows that ongoing coordination, and it indicates the willingness to consider alternatives. I don't know if we're going to be 100% successful throughout the entire, because I do know that one of the alternatives would be don't do anything whatsoever. We're trying to match those up, and we're trying to pull all that together. But we have stated that before, is that if we can speak their language as border security, we think we can actually reach different alternatives within that structure. Here's just I believe this may match up to the 6 that we have, so I'll go through them very quickly. But you can see that it is a raised berm along the river, as well as some type of fencing in there. This is one of the styles that they shared. They did state when they provided these alternatives, these are not final either. These are just alternatives that they're discussing as well too. And so I think there's still an opportunity from our side that we can get together and we can say what is going to make our downtown better. And I think that as we were walking through the conversations and everything, as you can tell, this does berm up differently from what's in the downtown area right now. The Border Patrol, my understanding is that even the berming, even the grass that is in this area is being provided within the agreement, whatever final agreement looks like. All right, this is the same style of fencing up there on the edge. This is just a different view looking across the park and as well too. Wow. I'll have to flip it that way. And then another style with the same type of fencing, just from a different viewpoint. And so what I wanted to make sure that you look at as well too is that, they have the little caricatures of the people there as well too. I think we had an earlier conversation at the press conference going, well, how high is this berm? What is this going to look like? Because some of the models we saw were actually going to be a lot taller than a vehicle and everything. So you lost the value of the river as an aesthetic view. As you can tell, I think we've got this is a lot different from even that version there, but just utilize the caricatures in the back to help kind of give an idea of what they're thinking. We don't have the specifications on that yet, so we can't determine exactly what that elevation is, but the conversations are ongoing, and this is what we're happy about. Another view of this from an aerial, because you can see along where our park is at and where it's at. I think Representative Raymond said it this morning as well too. It's not a lot different from what we already have there, because we already have some of the wrought iron through this park as well too. This area, my understanding is this area is from essentially the railroad bridge through Bridge 2. And so this is that sensitive area within there. We actually expect that we'll have a longer conversation to see if we can stretch it a little bit farther, because on the one side where the railroad bridge is, we have the River Bend area. And then on the other side, we have the Zacata Creek confluence. And so we would like to hopefully have ongoing conversations on this as well too. We're just optimistic and positive about where they're at right
Mayor, if
now.
I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, is there gonna be any access to the river for the community?
Thank you. Yes, and Mayor and I talked about that yesterday as well too. There is access points that are going to be provided within the conversation. And now this goes from a conversation we had because of our treatment plants and everything else, other areas, but very, very similar to this. The idea from Border Patrol was to make sure that there is access provided for that based upon our request. It's just where we're kind of located. I think the biggest challenge we have is that there will be access points to the river. It's just not going to be full access all along the river, right? That's the difference, because there will be a fencing in different areas for that. And so there will be, we will start talking about those access points as to what's in there. These maps don't really show that, but that'll be part of that conversation with the access. But we have talked about it in the other areas as well too, because we do need to.
What I mean, like, for those that like to kayak
Yes.
and all that.
Yes, yeah, that,
So,
yeah.
or you have,
Yeah, and that was the point. And in those conversations, we talked about whether they were, they opened and closed on their own, or whether they were manually opened and closed. We talked about all those different things, not a finalized conversation, but we were having those conversations because, again, we wanted to still have access to the river for our quality of life as well too. And so, yeah. Now we talked a little bit about the reviewing and validating the Tompkins report. We talked about the independent audit and review of the data as we bring that in there. I shared this at one of the last reports that I've done, Mayor, and I want to bring this back as well too, because in 2010, when we last had our largest flood, of course, we had a lot of different concerns that happened within that. We have over 300 structures currently in the flood zone area, within the AE flood zone area. Based upon our conversation that we had with the council as well too, the data that is being used for the base flood elevation is from 2008. Now, some of that data goes back to 2003, where they did their analysis for different pieces of that, and it wrapped up in the 2008 data. We're in 2026. We believe that the river and the city have changed a lot. We actually believe that we need to do a lot larger study. If flooding is that main concern, which it should be, and it should be citywide, we need to do a much larger flood FEMA study so that we can use this data to improve our base flood elevations that we have already. That'll require a full system modeling. That'll require FEMA coordination. We have reimbursement opportunities if we can get there. The challenge with this one is that it doesn't move fast enough at all. This is a 2 to 4 year process to get this mapping done. But I would recommend it based upon the lateness and the old data that we have that we're moving forward. I think we need to continue to try to improve those areas of those 300 structures that we have in a flooding area right now as well too, as well as a lot of our parking. I showed a couple of the maps the last time where we have a lot of tractor trailer parking within there, and they're not secured by anything, and that's what happened in 2010. We had one of those tractor trailer containers floating down the river, and we want to make sure that we reduce those things. So all that information flows together within this whole process. But we will be bringing forward at least to put this in there. This is the larger dollar amount of the study as well too. But so our recommended approach from now is to continue the coordination with the Border Patrol. Somebody used the term bureaucratic red tape and everything, and so there's a lot of that conversation going on. But these are conversations that are worthwhile. We want to maintain our engineering readiness. We do want to trigger our experts and our professionals when we need them, and so that we can actually utilize that data as best we can. I think I'm really optimistic now that we're starting to get that data from the Border Patrol itself. We get to utilize that data for our advantage as well too. We'll initiate any review upon the receipt of that data because we trust but verify is our mantra with that one. And we'll develop the scope for that broader flood study. That's our recommended approach with this item right now. The key message I just want to leave everybody with right now is that we want to do the right study using the right data and the right timing of those studies. We are not delaying the action. We are trying to sequence it correctly so that we have the best bang for each one of those steps. Mayor, I know that this is my last slide for that. I just wanted to make sure hopefully that meets what your needs were for this item on the special council meeting. So I'll stand for any questions.
All right, any questions?
Yes, Mayor Matt?
What?
Mr. Neb, you talked about the planned independent review and that the city will verify the FEMA's 100-year base flood elevation compliance and also the IBC.
Yes, ma'am.
That it can't have
The diversion.
a greater than 5% diversion standard of water. So regarding first the FEMA 100-year base flood elevation. So I've spoken to to civil engineers, and they talk about, and outside of actually anybody else that has been a part of this discussion up to now, they talk about the federal government requiring a 0.2% standard when engineers look at any federal civil works project. And what that 0.2% standard translates is to the 500-year floodplain, not just the 100-year floodplain. So the 100-year floodplain represents a 1%, basically an extreme, and you have to mitigate any circumstances if you were to meet that 1%. So if there was flooding that created a 100-year floodplain, there would be mitigation measures from any federal civil works project. They would model the data and make sure that the infrastructure wouldn't create havoc, essentially, or kill people.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. But the requirement in any other place in the country that has these federal laws in place that doesn't go under federal waivers is for that 2%, which is the 500-year floodplain. So why are we not looking at the 500-year floodplain when we're looking at, it doesn't stop the project, but what it requires is that the federal government mitigate for the potential damages caused by a 500-year flood.
So we've not been able to find all the right data for that because actually what we have been able to find is that, and I think it goes the other way, when you get near sensitive areas, and we've not been able to find the data that says every federal project has to be that way. But if there is a flooding or potential flooding for like a sensitive area like a hospital or any of those very significant structures and everything, you have to do that larger study for that in order to determine that. And I think it's actually, because the 500-year flood is actually, it's just going to happen it doesn't happen as often as the 100-year. Right. I believe the data is actually constitutes into a 50-year flood. Is that right, Mr. Chavez, as well too? Not the 500-year?
The 0.2 refers to a 500.
Well, I understand that, but is that the condition for exactly what the council?
In my opinion, the 100-year study determines the base flood elevation, which is a standard. Mm-hmm. So, for example, in our local ordinance, which we follow, any building within the floodplain must elevate any structure 30 inches above the base flood elevation. And so those are the standards that we look for. How that is compared to the 500-year, that's what we would have to determine.
And what the council member is talking about, though, is that there is a condition out there. What engineers have said is that there's a condition out there that if it is a federal project or if it's a...
There may be things like Mr. Grant mentioned, like hospital and sensitive structures and things that we may have to develop to that standard, but I don't know if federally you must comply with the 0.2% to meet the 500-year flood.
That is what I was told, that for any federal civil works project, that they do have to meet that 0.2%.
And we'll definitely, if that is the case, then that is the design standard that we'll have to follow, in my opinion.
Because it's not a hospital, it is a neighborhood. It is individual homes.
Right.
Right, that are being impacted, I won't say threatened, but impacted by this federal civil works project. So we should, I mean, they should be
And that's
considered as
part of,
highly as.
again, what Mr. Neves presenting, we're going to review and evaluate all this information, not because we receive it, we're still going to do our due diligence and through our consultants to make sure that we meet whichever requirements under the law.
Well, and we, I guess, and the challenge is, and walking back to exactly what your question is as well too, according to the CBP engineers, they have to meet the 100-year base flood elevation. That's where we went with that conversation. We'll qualify exactly what you've heard as well too within that structure, because happy to hold them, I have to verify it against something, right?
Right.
Within that structure. So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
and continuing on with that line, because the other item that you put there on the planned independent review was that it would have to meet the IBWC less than
Yes.
5% deflection. Since we do have plans now, can we share those with our SILA neighbors in Nuevo Laredo? Because IBC and SILA they're a joint organization. But the first time that this administration presented this wall project, the information did not flow from the IBWC to SILA. We are in a unique position because they're literally crossing our bridge. The offices are there. And I don't mean for it to be contentious, I just mean it as a way to share information.
But I'll tap dance around the answer a little bit, just a little bit, because I don't believe it's our responsibility to give them this data. I think we can walk through and say, I would start the conversation with talking with the Border Patrol, saying, are you going to provide the data to these other partners in order to do that? What I expect will happen is that the Border Patrol is going to give this data to the IBWC, who in turn should give it to their partners across the river.
Yes, they should.
And so, and we can, the nice thing is in a public meeting, they know that the data is being started to be delivered. And so they have every right to ask for the information as well, I think as well too. I want to be very careful about us taking on more of a role than we should within the structure of this.
I agree,
I
and my
understand.
suggestion is just to share the information, and really because Nuevo Laredo is going to feel the impacts from this federal infrastructure project. And so, bare minimum, they deserve information so that their engineers can look on how to protect their populations that live along the river.
I am, and Mayor, and you know, and I believe that if all other avenues fail, I think we're happy to serve in that role. I'm just recommending that we don't serve in that role unless that is the only option left to us.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Mayor,
Questions?
yeah, Mr. Neb, Mayor, thank you so much for leading this action right now. I think I was talking to one of my colleagues yesterday, and if you can believe that we were having that totally different conversation last August when we started this whole process. I think now I have the comfort level that seems to be that we have a seat at the table and we're being heard. That said, I still want to caution as to being lulled into a false sense of hope. But I'm just proud of the fact that some of my colleagues up here, especially Councilwoman Ciarroa, both, and Dr. King, and you know, the actions of the community that put us in this position right here. And I think we're working together. And as I stated the last time, speaking to everyone, that I think we need to get to the point where we're all speaking the same language, and I think we're headed in that direction. I think we will continue to work together and bring our other partners into the picture. I think we can have even more of a success and less of a struggle as we move forward. But thank you for this report.
All right, thank you.
And Mayor, I think my last item, and this goes to one of the items that are on for May 4th, for the Monday meeting, the right of entry. We will be recommending limited right of entry onto our properties to do the boundary survey stuff. And we talked a little bit about that because some of this data will be based upon how they're going to build on the property. So this was one of the conditions we were waiting on, was to get that data so that we could start the analysis of that. So they have met their side, excuse me, of the condition. And so our recommendation will be, if everything goes in the next couple days as we're walking through this, we will be recommending at least for the boundary survey information on our property. I've heard that there's some of our other agencies along the river are actually looking at the same kind of very limited access points, so.
Okay. I believe you have a public comment here on this item.
Mr. Orlando.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Ricardo de Anda.
Good afternoon,
Afternoon.
council members, Mr. Mayor. I'm Ricardo de Anda, appearing before you on behalf of the Rio Grande Landowners Coalition, of which I'm a member. And I'd like to start by thanking Mr. Nebb and congratulating you, Mayor, for getting us to this point. We've been working really hard. I know you've been working really hard. Thanks to your work, we've got them on the table and you're getting them to make some concessions. I would caution you, however, that the concessions that have been made so far are cosmetic concessions. They're important. How it looks when you're walking towards the bridge on Convent Avenue, it's important. But there's another issue that's even more important, and that's the public safety issue. And that needs to be on the negotiating table. And it needs to come from us. It should not be over taking care of this for you. You're in no danger. You should conduct your own study that'll tell you what dangers we're facing and how those dangers can be mitigated. For example, we met with Mr. Paul Enriquez. By we, I mean our GISC. And we discussed these public safety issues. And we asked him, is there anything that could be done to mitigate when you see that? He says, oh yeah, we've done it before. We don't build barriers in certain places to allow the river to expand. Maybe it makes sense if there is a finding of potential flooding in Laredo, for example, it may make sense to consider arguing for no wall between the golf course and Lago del Rio. I don't know, I'm not a hydrologist, but maybe that could be a mitigating factor so that the river is able to spread out before it hits Laredo, before it hits our bridges. But you can't get there, you can't negotiate unless you have the information and the knowledge. And I agree that we should do a flood evaluation for the city, long range, and it may take 2 or 3 years. But we're dealing with it now. You guys are in negotiations right now. You need to figure this out now. If, for example, these 300 homes that are documented to be in the floodplain will be flooded because of the walls, it may make sense for you guys to tell the feds, pay for these homes so that we can evacuate these people in the name of national security for the whole country, instead of leaving these people to their own designs when they get flooded. Maybe we should evacuate these people, pay them for their homes, the way we did for Zacate Creek when we took over those properties and condemned them. Maybe the feds should condemn those properties themselves instead of leave people to their own designs. But it's up to you, when you go into the negotiation session, to have this information. So I'm glad to hear that you guys have this issue of hiring an expert. I don't know who this hydrologist on rotation is. They may be consultants. But what you need is a report, a report from an independent expert hydrologist who will tell you these are the risks that you're facing. So that then you can advocate for the city of Laredo. It's not just the data on city-owned property that's at issue. It's not just making sure that the panels on our property are secured. It's all the way to Amistad Dam. So, I want to thank you, Mayor, for getting us to getting them to the table, as Mr. Raymond mentioned, as Representative Raymond mentioned. Now you got to keep them on the table. And as Raymond mentioned, this is only the first step. It's really the easiest step. The hardest step is making sure that our people don't get flooded. And we're relying on you to protect our people. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
Mayor, I have a question for Mr. Neb.
go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Neb, you said that CBP had met some type of conditions in order for the city to consider this limited right of entry for the boundary surveys. What conditions did they meet?
The request was updated mapping because we could not get to the actual parcels. So the maps that we have been actually utilizing within our office were from 2017 or the last administration timeframe. So we wanted the updated mapping, and of course we wanted, because they had offered to start providing the hydraulic data that they did have available, because some of this will be after the fact. I mean, some of it, because of this design build structure, we won't have some of that data until they can do the borings, so they can figure out what the foundation is on whatever they're going to do on the wall. So they provided that information, and keep in mind that they were asking for a right of entry C, which is all the way to the construction level. We're talking a portion of essentially a right of entry A, which is a much more limited structure for that. I believe that they need to get on and they need to start finding out what the format, what the dimensions of the ground are, and then we'll talk about what that next step looks like as well too. So that's what we're.
And when you talk about the next step, is that going to consider all of the city infrastructure that exists, the stormwater drainage pipes, the water pipes, the sewer pipes?
It stays in the conversation, but if you look at the steps that you take from the start all the way through, because they've done their online analysis to determine where all these parcels are. Now they're going to go on, they're going to measure the parcels. That's the boundary survey itself. Then they're going to want to go on and they want to know what the soil types are. They want to know what the lay of the land of where all these pipes are as well too. It's in that process, but we are trying to walk through it in a very definitive area, because what the maps also show is that some of the property is where they want to purchase the property for the wall itself, but they also have additional access points at the end of some of our streets. And those are actually, those will remain easements very similar to what we have currently with them within those agreements. So there are different levels of this conversation that we're trying to limit based upon those conditions, and walk through this thing, walk through it, not run through it like they wanted to do. So
and that's very much appreciated,
Yeah.
and I think the efforts of the mayor and yourself to negotiate with them have brought us to this point. But is our stormwater director and also Mr. Chavez, are they looking at the impacts of the wall in neighborhoods? Stormwater we get, right? And it's fast and it's furious, and we have a system to pull it to the river. But we do rely on surface water diversion. So a lot of the stormwater, if it occurs inside Laredo, it's just trying to flow to the river, right? That's just physics. But if there is a solid structure, and that bollard wall style will become a solid structure because of the 4-inch gaps, we have all this debris everywhere, it'll just become solid. Where will that water go?
Yeah.
And because this last time of the rains, the neighborhoods I represent had terrible flooding issues. And that's because of conditions that weren't considered when the drainage was installed in the first place. but it wasn't even that much water, and poor people had flooding in their homes or the threat of flooding in their homes. And you can imagine that all along the river being a real issue for neighborhoods that we know are low-lying, that we know are built up right against the floodplain. Where is our responsibility to figure out how a solid structure in that floodplain impacts
Well,
us?
and the quick answer to that, because you asked the question as you went through that, is yes, they will be looking at that. And again, the conversation goes, because we've seen some of the styles already where the foundation is up 3 to 4 foot off the ground. No water can get through a solid structure. That's exactly what you're talking about. They are looking at those conditions because some of our stormwater piping doesn't make it all the way to the river as well too. So if they put the wall on the wrong side of where that entranceway is, that can create a problem. We will keep an eye on that as well too. In our trust but verify, I'll just say it that way. But they have the responsibility in order to do that. Keep in mind that the flooding is not on one side of the river, the flooding is on both sides of that. And so,
Is that the reason why we're asking our experts to go in with their experts to get the same information?
yeah, and I've not had any response from them that says we're going to ignore that side of that. And then I'll leave it with that because again, this is always based upon the number of questions that we get from the council and everything, then we change our questions to them as well too, to make sure that we get responses for all these kind of pieces.
So there was a negotiation between Rio Grande City in 2019 and CBP, and they presented alternative plans. There was a lot of good discussion. And then in the end, nothing had changed, and they received wall that was just the 30-foot high, 6-inch bollard, 4-inch spacing in between wall in their city, even though city leaders had expected a different outcome because of the conversations that they were having. So when you say trust but verify, I think that is the expectation here on council.
And one of the things that I noticed with Rio Grande Valley, or city, is that at least the pictures that I saw where they were working on the wall, that was on the preserve area, the natural preserve area. That wasn't the same thing of taking our property to put that structure. I think there's a difference in the nuances of that. There is a difference within whether or not they're putting it on their property already or they're putting it on our property that they're trying to take from us. And I think there are some variances with that structure. We keep an eye on that stuff. I read every story right now, no matter which side of the equation it's on. So.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion?
No, sir, no motion, just discussion. No motion. Motion to adjourn, Mayor.
Motion to adjourn? All in favor, second? Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.